3, 2, 1, craft! Welcome to the Arena Craft Podcast, a show dedicated exclusively to Magic the Gathering Arena. My name is Arjuna. I'm one of your hosts, the less cooler looking of the two of us today, and I would like to introduce CovertGoBlue, Mr. Blue in the shades over here, the other host of the show. How you doing, buddy?
The listeners don't know. They don't understand the tremendous difference that a pair of sunglasses can make on just the visual aesthetic of the podcast.
Yeah, it really brings out that kind of Agent Smith side of you, you know?
It really does. I feel untouchable, and I say really dumb things that I regret at the end of the day.
Oh, because you're bulletproof, right?
Yeah.
What would CGB say if he had no fear?
He has no fear. What are you talking about? The one in best of one does not know fear.
It's a terrible spectacle to imagine. But, crafties, this brings us to the topic of this episode, which is today we are going to be reviewing some of the cards. It feels like there's so many cards in the set, man. Some of the cards from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. So it's going to be a set review. It's going to be a bit of an atypical one since we usually do them before the set releases. But, you know, when you have one of the greatest all-time Magic players willing to come on your show, you kind of make room for it. So we're doing it this week. And that's pretty much what we're going to talk about, CGB. Any thoughts before we dive right in?
For anybody who skipped last week or this is their first show for some reason, we're talking about, we did an episode last week with Andrea Mengucci. So we had to postpone the new card talk just for a minute. And I guess I just wanted to say before we start the show that things are going well on my side, and I got back to Mythic again, playing with Kamigawa cards. So I've played the set a little bit, and I have some thoughts about it. I don't think I told the story here of what happened to my Mythic streak, getting Mythic every month since the ladder was introduced. Did I tell you what happened at the end of last month?
I don't think so.
Oh, God. All right.
Do we want to know? All right. Strap yourselves in, young crafties. Uncle CGB has the story.
Of course, I was on vacation through the 27th of January. So then I had 4 days left to make Mythic, and I hadn't played at all. So on the last day, I needed like 2 more rungs of Diamond. So I thought it would just be good content. I went live at like about 10 a.m. with like 4 hours to go. Thought it was very doable. 2 wins away from Mythic with 15 minutes left. I get into a winning position against a mono white player who ropes me the final 15 minutes of the season.
No way.
Yeah.
And seriously?
Seriously.
So like they let the rope get kind of like all the way down and then they pass and then...
And then they do take an action so it reloaded. Yeah. So they didn't actually burn the timeouts. Yeah. They intentionally roped out my season. It was live on Twitch. Like everybody was watching it.
That is the most spiteful.
Yeah, about over 1,500 people watch me get just live roped out of Mythic on Twitch.
I mean, that is content. That's a certain kind of content. You know, you mono white mages, dude, I swear, like I've never been so roped by people playing such an enraging deck. You know, like if you play a deck that regularly makes people want to smash their face into their monitor, you don't get to rope. It's like, it's the worst meeting of the world. I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
I've never been roped by a control mage.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I didn't get roped. I think I got roped like once a month, maybe by mono red, but I got roped by mono white earlier today. Again, you know, I get roped by mono white like every stream.
See, that's what I'm saying. Mono red players, they just want a game, dude. They're like, if they're losing, they're like, I might lose in 3 turns. I'm out. You know, they're just done. But yeah, these mono white mages, certain kind of psychopath. Anyway, well, that sounds fun. Is that recorded anywhere for the crafties to go watch?
It's recorded somewhere. I think the Twitch VOD is public for now. And I think that there's a members only, like YouTube membership only. If you hit the join button below, you can watch my Twitch VODs with they're ad free and you can do 2x speed and things like that. You can watch them back on YouTube and I'm sure it's in there.
Sick. All right. Good little bid for that.
If you want to watch that. If you want to watch some
minutes,
if you just want to watch me sit there watching my soul leave my body, some people are into this, I guess.
I just want to like see the stages of frustration that you go through. Like that's all I really want to.
I sat there and took it a bit. Chat got really rowdy, and I kind of stirred them up a little bit. It was funny.
Nice. All right. Well, with that story time out of the way, I think it's time for us to read some cards. So I'm going to kick things off. We've organized this kind of in the way that we did last time, where we have like categories. So the first one that we're going to start on is threats and monsters. I feel like this set has like it hits you from so many diverse angles that I've put, there's like some sagas in here and some creatures and just whatever. But this is just like cards I thought would hit the battlefield and make your opponent think like, oh crap, I got to deal with that. So the first one that we're going to talk about is Tribute to Hirobi. So this is a saga. It is 1 and a black. And the first 2 chapters are the same. They read, each opponent creates a 1/1 black rat rogue creature token. This is a rare, by the way. And then the third chapter says, exile this saga, then return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. And guess what it comes back as, crafties? None other than Echo of Death's Wail, which is just metal as hell. So this is a 3/3 enchantment creature spirit. It has flying and haste, and when Echo of Death's Wail enters the battlefield, gain control of all rat tokens. Whenever Echo of Death's Wail attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, draw a card. So this is a cool little card, which has like a whole little sub-game and story arc baked into it, right? The idea is that you give your opponent a couple of rats, you hope they stick around, then you steal them, sack them to the flip side, draw some cards. So what do you think, CGB? I know you've been kind of famously skeptical of cards that give creatures to your opponent for some future benefit. Do you think this card's going to get there?
This one's a good one. At least it flies over the top of those and yoinks them from the opponent so they don't get to defend against it. And you forget about some of the text until you play it, like sacrifice a creature and draw a card. That's really pretty great. My issue with the card so far is I don't know if it passes the you're in best of 1 on the draw test,
Yeah.
It is not the best thing to play when you're facing down like turn 1 Usher, turn 2 Luminarch Gas Pirate. A few times I've given my opponent rats and they deadly dispute and they do cool stuff that they probably wouldn't have done otherwise.
Yeah, that feels pretty bad.
When it's flipped and doing its thing, it's very hard to stop. It just... I was more excited about it before I played it. It's the very first time I played it on the draw from a tough position, I was like, I'm going to take like a few extra damage, and that could really cost me the game. It really could. So yeah, I'm pretty medium on this card at the moment. I was pretty high on it a week ago.
Another thing to note about this card is that, you're ending up with a 3/3 haste flyer, which is kind of an aggressive creature, and this is a 2-drop. And one of my worries is that, like, if you're playing this aggressive black deck and you're giving your opponent free blockers that they're highly incentivized to block with before you steal them back, this might slow down the rest of your deck. So I would really take a look at that if you were gonna like build a really aggro deck with this in it.
Oh, it's an odd one for sure. There's a lot of cards that are going to turn out like this that make you think that mid-range has to be back on the menu. And from early on playing the format, it feels like it is, because like all in aggro outside of like maybe a red deck doesn't really get a bunch of stuff. And all out control doesn't get a bunch of stuff. Like there's all these like just stuff down the middle creating all kinds of value in weird ways, and this falls into that category where it's like it's both aggressive and it's defensive and it has value and it gives the opponent stuff but then takes it. I will say this, if you ever have 2 of this, it's amazing, because you play 1 on 2, you play another on 3, you stack your saga triggers on the 3rd turn, you give them the rats and then yoink them all right then.
Oh, sweet. That's nice.
And it's not legendary on the backside either. So get it.
Yeah. So then you have some flyers, you're drawing a couple cards a turn. Yeah, you're kind of living large at that point for sure. Well, I just wanted to comment on what you were saying, which I think is totally true. This set is designed to be like this really interesting kind of mid-rangey format with all kinds of crazy like vehicles and sagas and weird creatures flying around. This is honestly one of the weirdest Magic sets I've ever seen. And statistically, Crafties, this set has more text on the cards in total than any other set in Magic's history. So think Strixhaven, except this set's actually like pretty good.
Yeah, that's a real stat from Twitter. Somebody compiled that information and it's true.
So anyway, it also makes it a very hard set to evaluate. I fully expect that to be like tens of cards that people miss or like misevaluate one way or the other that end up doing really powerful things. So yeah, fun creative period for content creators to explore.
Agreed. I wouldn't craft this specific card before we transition. I wouldn't craft it yet. I'm unconvinced now.
No, totally agree. Yeah, weird card. All right, next one, Atsushi, the Blazing Sky. This one came out a while ago, spoiled, but for some reason I don't think we talked about it. 2 red, legendary creature dragon spirit at Mythic. It is a 4/4 flying trample. So this is one of the legendary dragons of the set. So when Atsushi the Blazing Sky dies, choose 1. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards, or you can create 3 treasure tokens. What do you think?
I'm curious what you think, because no matter what I think, you're going to tell me it's a 4-mana 4/4 dragon without haste and probably crap on it.
I'm not that impressed by this card, to be honest. Yeah. Well, honestly, this is one of the like less whelming dragons of the cycle, in my opinion. It's not that it can't do powerful things. It's hard for me to see the deck that this wants to go into. It's kind of like if you want to do treasury things, I still think that Goldspan is the better route. And I just feel like how many dragons can you cram into a deck like that? But I don't know. What do you think?
I wonder sometimes how many cards I can draw or how many stupid things I can do if I have this and a Goldspan dragon and Village Rites and an Orcus, to get it back and then sacrifice it again. And just I feel like there's some nonsense in there because 3 treasures when it dies is an awful lot.
That's true. I mean, with Goldspan Dragon, you're basically netting a treasure in that exchange, right?
Yeah, I just don't. In Standard, I don't see how this gets played as more than a 1/of. And in general, the dragons have the Vanishing Verse problem that may or may not go away anytime soon. There seems to be even more exile available now. March of Otherworldly Light comes to mind as a card I've been playing more and more. And so in that world, the dragons aren't very good. I wouldn't grab more than 1 of any of them, and only if you love them for now, but we'll see how it goes. There are some dragons I still want to mess around with. This is one I haven't messed around with yet.
Yeah, totally. Part of the problem is just that there are a lot of dragons now, right? Like in Standard, we got plenty of dragons. In Alchemy, we got even more dragons. You're definitely not going to run this over your Town Razor Tyrant. So I feel like it's just kind of getting edged out,
Yeah. What happened there? When Kaldheim came out, we were like, ooh, Goldspan. There's a mythic dragon here that might be playable. Flash forward a year, there's like 50 million dragons in Standard. And it's not just the D&D set. Every set now is like dragon. Do you like dragon? Have dragon. More dragon.
Yeah, and they all cost 4 mana too. I mean, come on, man. Like, can we vary it up a little bit? I don't know. Anyway, this next card is kind of a dragon. So it's called Thundering Reiju.
I can't believe this isn't a dragon.
It even looks like a dragon.
I know.
With a nice little flower on its ear. I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, Thundering Reiju, 2 red, creature spirit at rare, haste, 3/3. Whenever Thundering Reiju attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then Thundering Reiju deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of modified creatures you control other than Thundering Reiju, and if you weren't aware, crafties, equipment, auras you control, and counters on modifications. So basically, if a creature has anything on top of it, then you get a proc off of this. And I don't know about you, CGB, but this is a pretty scary looking creature to me.
I am confident that an opponent who is like going first and plays their curve very well and then slams this is going to attack me for 1 million. I just don't I don't know, man. I thought it had flying. It's a spirit. It looks like it's flying in the art. When I found out it didn't have flying, I was like, I think that there's a really good chance you're going to play this and attack with it. And even if you put the counter on it, you're going to slam into something and it's going to die. You know, it doesn't favorably trade with an old growth troll, just as an example of something that could easily happen to it, or a intrepid adversary with a counter on it. I am now very cynical of the Thundering Reiju. I like the idea of kind of this modified creature deck where you get extra damage off the trigger. The more damage you get off the trigger, the closer it gets to playable for me. It's almost like it got some evasion. I just don't know if it's going to survive very long in combat very often. I feel like it's going to run in there and bite it really fast.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally hear that. It kind of reminds me of, what was that called? Hellraiser a little bit? Hellrider? Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think pound for pound, that's a better card than this is. But that was quite a scary card. And I think in the right circumstances, this could even be better than Hellrider. So I wouldn't totally count it out. But I mean, I agree. It's asking a little bit much of you to really get the full value out of it. I feel like there might be some future printings that are really kind of counter heavy, or like maybe we get a couple of other cards like Luminarch Aspirant or something, and we end up with a deck where this looks really sexy as a top end. But other than that, I'm kind of with you. I wouldn't craft any of these, for example, until I saw someone else make a good deck with them.
Maybe there's somebody out there who just loves everything they've ever done with an Angel Fire Ignition and Showdown of the Scalds, and this is just made for you. So I've seen those players on the ladder. There's a lot of, for some reason, Fireblade Chargers and Angel Fire Ignition believers out there. So this is for them, but I'm not into it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a good top end in a Showdown deck. So yeah, it's a cool combo for sure. All right, next one, Invoke the Ancients. 1 green, 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 green. This is another one of those invocations, as it were. This is a sorcery add rare. Create 2 4/5 green spirit creature tokens. For each of them, put your choice of a vigilance counter, a reach counter, or a trample counter on it. So, I mean, pretty simple and fairly beefy card. If you want beef, this is a lot of beef in one card.
It's an incredible amount of beef in one card, and then you just have to ask yourself if at 5 mana this level of beef is what you're in the market for. I haven't cast Invoke the Ancients myself. How about you?
No, I haven't cast nor seen it.
Okay, I have played against it. I played against an opponent playing pretty traditional mono green, and they cast 3 of these against me.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah, sounds like a board state, right? Yeah. And I didn't actually kill any of them. But my situation was I was playing the black-white token deck, and I don't know, I had like an Amiria's Call cast and a Mascot Exhibition cast, and I had 2 flipped wedding announcements, and I had like 4 shambling ghasts and some eye twitches, and I was hanging out with a Lulth, and they played these, and it didn't matter. I was still outboarding them by a mile. Wedding Announcement is a messed up card, and drawing multiples of it creates messed up games. So you can't take too much stock from one game, but I think if you were still running Ren in mono green, this is competing with it for the spot, and maybe with Unnatural Growth too.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it wins the spot. It's better than Ren in some matchups for sure. It creates more immediate board presence, and it's good with Unnatural Growth because you can make an insane amount of trample, 16 trample power with it. But I just don't know, man. I'm very unconvinced by Invoke the Ancients. I wish it were an instant, just because that would be amazingly powerful.
That would be a really good card.
That would be an insane card, but it would justify like a 5 mana quad green, what a quad green instant would need to be. So
yeah,
for me, this is a miss right now. I don't see it as a game breaker in the format, but we'll see.
Yeah. No, I think your comparison to Planeswalker is good. To me, this kind of feels like a Planeswalker, right? Like that's the place it fills in like an aggressive mono green deck for sure. For me, I feel like I wouldn't be interested in this card unless I had some special synergies, like maybe I'm doubling tokens, or maybe I'm doubling this spell somehow. Like then it becomes super threatening. But I think other than that, I think you're right. It's just not quite as good in the decks
Now you have me thinking of trying to figure out how to play my quad green card with Kaya, the 3-mana Kaya that doubles tokens. You have me thinking about trying to play it with that Faithful Disciple in Alchemy and go get an Anointed Procession in Standard, or in Alchemy, I mean.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I mean,
that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's a thing. And I mean, outside of Arena, we have all kinds of token doublers. We even have some in green. So I don't know, Commander players might be interested in a card like this. I'm going to say, as far as the mana requirements, I haven't tried it. I never would try it, but I definitely got Invoke Despaired 3 times today by somebody playing Sultai. Nice.
So it's doable. They hit me on turn 5, they hit me on turn 6, and I think the last one hit me around turn 9.
Okay, did it do the thing? Did it squeeze you out of the game?
I lost a lot of things and a lot of life, and they drew a lot of cards, and I won anyway. Because this is a classic CGB. I played against this story. Wasn't going to bring up the outcome, but since you kind of asked,
slip the humble brag in there. No worries. Well,
won anyway.
There you go. Which I think describes this next card as well. Cora the Boundless Sky, 3 green, legendary creature, dragon spirit at mythic. It's another one. This one is a 4/4 flying death touch. When Cora the Boundless Sky dies, choose 1. Search your library for up to 3 land cards. Reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. And 2, create an XX green spirit creature token where X is the number of lands you control. Certainly a very threatening looking beater. This one, it feels right about the same level of playability to me as Atsushi did,
Okay.
Where it's fine, but it's not really good enough. That's my take on it.
I wish it put the lands on the battlefield. Would that have been broken? I mean, what are you doing with 3 lands in your hand?
Yeah.
Just going to play Wrenn and ramp them out that way, or Cultivator Colossus. I guess it's better in hand because you can turn them into cards. But I think this is a commander card, and I think it's a good one. Like, you want flying, you want death touch. Nobody will want to attack you. But then when the board eventually gets cleared, you go fetch 3 broken lands because you're playing commander, and they have broken lands in that format.
Yeah. So you bring up a good point. It doesn't say basic lands, doesn't give you a stipulation on the land. So if you have really good lands to get, then the value of this card could go up significantly. Yeah.
If you're a 3-color deck in the current format with the new lands, the legendary lands, that true. Cycle, you can just kind of fetch 3 spells with this.
Yeah. That's not a bad thing to do. So it might come up, playing this card in some matchups might come up. Like, I'm planning to trade this for a key threat on a key turn, and then I'm planning to follow up with some of those spell lands, and it could get there, but not by itself, that's for sure. All right, let's move on to Teachings of the Kieran. Now, this is a weird card, man. I almost didn't want to put this on here, but
really?
Who knows?
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe you have that knowing look in your eyes, so we'll see. Teachings of the Kieran, 1 and a green. It is a rare saga. Mill 3 cards, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. Chapter 2, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Chapter 3, exile this saga and return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. It turns into Kieran Touched Orochi, which is a 1/1 enchantment creature, Snake Monk. Whenever Kieran Touched Orochi attacks, choose 1. Exile target creature card from a graveyard. When you do, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token, or the other option, it's not a chapter. Exile target non-creature card from a graveyard. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. That was a mouthful, man.
Sorry, I zoned out there. I don't know what does this card do?
Something about 1/1s and counters, and I don't know, man.
I wouldn't touch Teachings of Kieran without Willowdusk. I think it's just specifically made for Willowdusk.
What is that?
So Willowdusk is a 1 green 1/1 spirit, and it has trample because 1/1s really should. And whenever a card leaves your graveyard, you put a +1/+1 counter on Willowdusk. This fills the graveyard, puts a counter on your Willowdusk, and then starts removing cards from it. The weird thing is it's still a creature. Like, it still has to attack to do the thing, which means you have to get things out of the way. I think this card's horrible.
Yeah,
like horrible.
I agree. Like, if you've crafted it, you should feel regret. Maybe not shame, but definitely regret.
I don't know. You got to love Willowgeist. Just love your Willowgeist and go for it, I guess.
Yeah, it could do some things, but I don't know, man. I mean, it's, we expect a lot from our green 2-drops. I mean, compare this to Ranger class, right? Yeah, that's the knowing look of comparison right there.
So close. It's almost the same thing when you think about it.
If you squint real hard, it's kind of a Ranger class. Anyway, this next card is Reiju Storm's Edge. 2 red, white. I hate it already. Legendary creature, human samurai. 3/3 first strike. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, untap it. If it's the first combat phase of the turn, there is an additional combat phase after this phase. So the whole Exalted thing is coming back. They're not calling it Exalted, but that's basically what it is. Things that trigger off one single creature attacking alone. And as memey as this looks, it's kind of scary.
It's a flavorful mechanic, but I don't know. I don't think that alone justifies its existence. You're taking out literally one of the funnest things about having creatures, which is attacking with as many creatures as you can. I don't know who it is. I don't know who the customer is who is like looking at their creatures like, oh, I just want to pick one every turn. That's what satisfies me, attacking with one and getting some upside for it. So I'm on just universal samurai. No. Yeah. I people keep coming in my stream. Are you going to build a samurai deck? And I'm just like, no, because I just feel like you're giving up on one of the coolest and best possible things about Magic and creature decks, which is combat with multiple creatures. Now, you can get all like in my face on this one and be like, but you have to attack with it the first time, and then you get another attack, and then you can attack with all your creatures. Just attack with all your creatures the first time. What's wrong with that? Play a removal spell, kill the opponent's thing, or play a hasty thing, and then just attack with everything and win. I don't know. This card is I can't.
I'm with you. Honestly, I couldn't even name another samurai from this set. So that tells you where I sit on the whole. But I mean, come on, it's also Boros. When was the last time you unironically played a Boros deck?
Me? That's a great question. I bet I can go into the record since every day there's a video on YouTube of me playing something. But I'm sure there's a Boros deck in there somewhere. It's just usually they do involve attacking the opponent to death. And they usually don't involve one little creature at a time, especially when that creature doesn't have haste. Every samurai should have freaking haste or something.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Are we even still talking about that card? Anyway, March of Burgeoning Life, X and a green. Man, do we have to talk about this card?
No, I hate this card.
Okay, crafties, don't craft this card unless you see someone else doing well with it. All right, on to the next one. Now, this is a card which has been getting some press, okay? Hinata Dawn Crowned, 1 blue, red, white. So 1 and a Jeskai. This is a legendary creature, Kieran Spirit at rare. This is a 4/4 flying trampler. So on Arjuna's shit list already. But spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each target, and spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast for each target. So at first blush, this doesn't seem particularly powerful. You're like, oh, it turns my 2 mana red burn spell into a 1 mana red burn spell or whatever. But obviously it only took a nanosecond for people to break this card. And now they've been playing it with Magma Opus. And yes, crafties, with the right configuration, you can actually cast Magma Opus for 2 mana by using this card. So that's pretty busted.
Yeah. Stepping into the paper realm for a second, my first Commander game with new cards features this. I cast Magma Opus for 2. I cast Sublime Epiphany for 2. I cast Meteor Shower for 3. I cast Heliod's Intervention for like 7 for 2 mana. I mean, And those are all cards that are on Arena if you want to play Historic or things like this. The card definitely unlocks nonsense.
Yeah. Also, speaking of nonsense, is this like a horse with a freaking face hugger on it or what? Like, this is kind of a terrifying looking creature.
It's a Kieran spirit. You don't have those in your part of the country? Here in Michigan, they're just in everyone's backyard, man.
I wasn't aware that aliens was invading the world of Magic, but here we are. Something even more terrifying will hatch from its belly in a few days, I guess. But anyway, yeah, so I've seen this played in shells that look fairly close to like an Izzet control shell that are basically just splashing Hinata and then just kind of going off with Magma Opus. And those decks look very potent because those decks were always very potent. And this is kind of like a combo top end kind of finish for that deck. So that's an easy place to put it. I think people are going to continue to find other shells to play this in. And overall, very inspiring card, I think.
I'm wondering if there's a cool shell with like Goldspan Dragon. You play this into Goldspan Dragon into cast like 50 spells somehow.
On your Goldspan Dragon?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Like a Jeskai Mutate version 2 or something. So I know that you're a fan of the Blue March CGB, and I can't help but notice that you can cast Blue March for X equals any amount for 1 blue mana with this.
You must have been watching me playing ninjas because that's the only time I've played Blue March so far. But yeah, that is legit. Blue March in this can target everything on the board if you wanted it to. And a Blue March, just as a reminder, is, X target creatures phase out. So for 1 blue mana, you can phase out your Hinata and your opponent's entire board and your entire board if you wanted to.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. That sounds like a meme at the moment, but it could come up in certain situations, especially if you were playing a deck that relied on Hinata and other creatures on the board under your control. Being able to just like blank a sweeper or something, or some multi-targeted removal spell that your opponent paid more for, you could do that. So,
yeah. Anybody who watched me play Blue March so far knows that card, my decks might be memes. That card is legit. If you're in a racing scenario, that card is kind of crazy.
Yeah, also just an incredibly versatile card, right? Like exactly, it blanks you from sweepers, it blanks you from your opponent alpha striking you. You can just come up with all kinds of nonsense scenarios for it. Very cool card. So yeah, you'll probably have uses for it. All right, the last card in this category is Containment Construct. This is an artifact for 2 mana, an artifact creature construct at uncommon, thank God. It's a 2/1. Whenever you discard a card, you may exile that card from your graveyard. If you do, you may play that card this turn. Whoa. I mean, like, I can't think of any immediate combos for this in Standard. We do have plenty of discard spells, but in general, that is a very powerful effect.
Anything that would cause you to discard. If you cycle a land in Historic, then you can play it off this card. If you have this in play. Yeah. There's a number of things like that. The Ninja Planeswalker is a +1 to draw a card, then discard a card if you didn't attack this turn, which kind of just transforms into +1 draw a card. You don't need to attack. There's other effects like that. I mean, this in a Thrill of Possibility, discard a land, play a land. So yeah, there's potential for this. I don't know how the 2/1, it's like the most vulnerable thing in the freaking world, right?
It is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it looks like it could be part of some combo that goes off on turn 6 or whatever. I don't know, but really interesting card. Definitely want to keep an eye on. It might show up in some other formats. You mentioned it's an uncommon, thank God. We've looked at a lot of rares and mythics so far, but I think this is like, for commons and uncommons, this is the best set I can remember. There are so many good ones. Yeah,
so
I
many.
agree. Just a lot of really interesting and powerful cards. So really thankful for that. It's also always sweet when they print uncommon sagas. I just love that. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next category, and this category is answers. So CGB cracks open his drink and smiles happily.
Removal, let's go.
Let's go. All right. So the first answer we are going to talk about is Touch the Spirit Realm. This is 2 and a white for an uncommon enchantment. When Touch the Spirit Realm enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature until Touch the Spirit Realm leaves the battlefield. So it's your, Garden Variety O-Ring that can only hit artifacts and creatures, so that's the thing. But wait, there's more. It has this channel ability for 1 and a white. Discard Touch the Spirit Realm. Exile target artifact or creature. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So, very versatile card here.
At this point, we should be aware of what blinking can do. All kinds of things, like lots of stuff. So adding kind of that double face card to Touch the Spirit Realm, trying to get a Banishing Light type effect to be more playable, seems pretty good. Seems really good to me. The biggest problem I have with it is we've got a kind of enchantment set, and I found the artifacts so far to be a lot better than the enchantments, but if the artifacts are really good, then this does exile them. Maybe this will get played.
Yeah, I think there's enough text on the card, and channel being an uncounterable ability is very strong. There's one thing I've gained in respect for already playing this format, and it's that uncounterable effects like this are very strong. So, I think this card could definitely show up somewhere. Next card, March of Swirling Mist. That's the blue one that we were talking about. I'll just read it again. It's one of these things where you can exile blue cards from your hand to make it cost 2 less, and then it says up to X target creatures phase out. Anything else you want to say that we didn't say before?
I think it's one of the only ways to just save your whole team from a board wipe for sure. Like, you can hold up like a Spell Pierce, but they Doomscar and they pay the 2 and things like that. Or maybe you have Tested Talents and they play Meat Hook Massacre. But one of the cool things about it is the board wipe resolves. So I can't tell you how many times playing ninjas, like they had an eye twitch that was really giving me trouble. And then they go for a meat hook and I'm like, yeah, I'll just phase out my 3 creatures and thank you for removing this eye twitch. It was really a pest. I'm glad it's gone. And then I untap and just smash them. The card's not a joke. I've tried up to 4 of them in decks and I'm not sure what the right shell for it is, because I've become kind of convinced that ninjas aren't really the way to do it, but something is. There's some kind of a tempo race the opponent deck, and this is like a full time walk on their combat phase, and they can't block you, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, massive blowout potential for sure. All right, next up we have Hidetsugu Consumes All. This is a mythic saga, 1 black-red. Chapter 1, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. Chapter 2, exile all graveyards. Chapter 3, exile this saga, then return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. It comes back as Vessel of the All-Consuming. Enchantment creature Ogre Shaman. It is a 3/3 with trample. And whenever Vessel of the All-Consuming deals combat damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And whenever Vessel of the All-Consuming deals damage to a player, if it has dealt 10 or more damage to that player this turn, they lose the game, which probably only matters if you're playing against a life gain opponent or maybe in Commander, because otherwise, how many times do you have to hit someone to get this all the way up there? But, yeah, whatever.
Most of what I have to say on this is I don't know what the hell to do with this card.
I know, it's really weird.
But it actually doesn't say combat damage. It says deals damage.
Just any damage.
So if you can somehow give it like the abilities of a Mayhem Devil, and just go to the dome, it will just keep growing, and eventually when it hits 10, they lose the game. So I don't know. You know how that Heliod Scurryoak thing makes a million squirrels with life gain somehow? Is there some way to just keep putting a counter on this, and every time a counter lands on it, it deals a damage to something, and every time it deals a damage, it gets another counter?
I don't know. No, it's possible.
They're probably going to print that card like 2 sets from now, just when you forget that this thing is real.
Yeah, or it was printed in some obscure Commander set or something. Yeah, I'm sure there's combos out there where you can just like Hadouken your opponent to death with this thing. But super weird card. So let's talk about that front side. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. There are actually some shells that I've been seeing emerge in this format where that could be a fairly devastating card or devastating effect. I'm thinking specifically of these like super cheap artifact decks. Like I've seen Croakies playing these decks with like a bunch of artifacts and tokens and nonsense like that. So if your opponent's doing some kind of nonsense like that, this could be a very potent card against them, because remember, it's just going to wipe up all tokens. Other than that, I feel like if that chapter 1 isn't really juicy for the matchup you're in, then this card's just probably not good enough, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with this thing. I mean, it looks really good when I think about some of the competitive EDH tables I've seen. It seems really good to wipe out all their mana crypts and soul rings, but otherwise I have no idea.
Yeah, could also be good in a format like Modern or Legacy, where people are just playing all these Moxen and ridiculous stuff. Anyway, the next card, very glad CGB gave this one the okay to talk about, because I'm a big fan. Colossal Sky Turtle, which, crafties, if you weren't aware, is an enchantment creature, turtle. And it is an uncommon. For the low price of 4 green, blue, so that's, 7 mana, you can get a 6/5 flying ward 2. But wait, there's more. It also has 2 channel abilities. The first channel ability is you pay 2 and a green to discard Colossal Sky Turtle, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. And then the other one is channel 1 on a blue. Discard Colossal Sky Turtle, return target creature to its owner's hand. So has this card done enough to earn your respect in the format, CGB?
This card hasn't done anything to me yet. I mostly just wanted the majestic sounds of your voice saying turtle.
You just left it in there for cosmetic reasons. I'm a big fan of this card. I don't know if I should be, but it's becoming my brand. So there you go. I will say that uncounterable channel ability to bounce a creature is really nice. I had the fun adventure of bouncing some Goldspan Dragons with this, and the opponent wasn't ready to not get treasure from that interaction, and that felt very, very nice.
Ooh, what? Okay, cool.
This is like the what's that interaction, the Binding the Old Gods, right? Where like it's an effect, but it's not a spell, and so that's pretty nice. If you have a Goldspan problem, this can definitely be an answer. It can also be an answer just when you slam it as a 6/5 that blocks flyers. Not bad. So anyway, I was playing this in a fun deck that I was actually inspired by the one Jame. Was playing a deck built around, God, what's that Sisters enchantment? I forget the name of it.
You got me on that. Quick. The Sisters enchantment.
Yeah, it's a mythic enchantment that brings stuff back from your graveyard. Anyway, it was cool in that deck, and I think this card is cool, and it might actually be good.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I kind of
Soul Sisters or something like that.
Spirit Sisters Call.
Spirit Sisters Call. That's the one.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Still got it.
This is like a fun like interaction in the early game and then finisher in the late game in that deck. So anyway, really cool card. I hope it shows up in Constructed. Let's talk about the next category here. So we're moving on to vehicles, which I've seen a lot of press for vehicles, especially in non-standard formats. So it seems like they've put some real juice in here. So the first card we're going to talk about is Anchor to Reality. 2 blue sorcery at uncommon. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or a creature. Search a library for an equipment or vehicle card. Put that card onto the battlefield and shuffle. If it has mana value less than the sacrifice permanent's mana value, scry 2. So, I mean, you can summon up something from your deck. This doesn't immediately jump out to me as being playable, but I could see certain decks that would want an effect like this, and it is powerful.
Artifact or creature can be like a lot of things: blood, treasure, shambling ghast, eye twitch. Yep. It's not that high of a cost like it usually is, and being able to just straight up fetch a vehicle or equipment, like toolbox something, like a chariot. I mean, just more ways to have a turn 4 chariot. That doesn't sound too bad. I'm curious about what a deck can do with this card.
Mm-hmm. definitely. I mean, the power is there, right? We just have to find the right place to put it. Next card here. Prodigies Prototype. CGB didn't want to read this one, but I found it interesting enough that I would just mention it. So this is a 1 white-blue artifact vehicle at uncommon. It's a 3/4. Whenever one or more vehicles you control attack, create a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token with this creature crew's vehicles as though its power were 2 or greater, and it has a crew of 2. By the way, I'm not a fan of these creatures that are like have 1 power, but they crew with a different power or whatever. Like, I mean, I see what they were going for, but I find it to be an incredibly confusing mechanic, and I'm not here for it.
So
CG was like, well, why did you read the damn card then?
Overruled me. No, I actually get it. I actually get what you mean. I have a similar kind of grumble where it doesn't feel right, and it definitely takes getting used to in my brain. But that said, why did you put it back on? Do you think it's a powerful card?
Yeah, I think in a admittedly, I have not myself like played a vehicle deck. But I've seen this card do some work in other people's vehicle decks. Maybe it's going to end up being like not the choice, but I do think that it's a powerful upside. It has a pretty low crew cost. And yeah, I like the idea of like, if you have like maybe a 1-drop pilot and a 2-drop vehicle, you can slam this on 3 and you're already getting value out of it, kind of a thing. Also, you do need pilots. If you're building a vehicle deck, those pilots got to come from somewhere, right? And so the ability to like generate more pilots, especially in combination with another card, which is Mech Titan Hanger, which like allows you to crew up your vehicles without creatures. This can be like a nice way to just keep those creatures flowing to make sure that your vehicle is getting in there. So again, maybe it's just like an limited only kind of a card, but I thought it was worth looking at.
One of the weaknesses with playing too many vehicles, and in the last standard that was heavily vehicle flavored back in one of your favorites, Kaladesh, it became generally acceptable to have 4 to 6 vehicles because you just couldn't have like 2 vehicles, no crewer. It was a disaster. Do you think that this actually mitigates that situation? Because I don't think it does. I'm skeptical of that. Like, does this address that problem really?
I mean, I've watched it address that problem.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if it's good enough, but I definitely think it can. So, I mean, in the case of like, if someone's sweeping your board numerous times, then maybe like you're just not really able to keep up on it. But I think in a situation where your opponent has like spot removal and they would just like to kind of conveniently kill all your creatures and leave your vehicles stranded in the hangar, this card is going to say no to that, right?
Okay. All right.
So
we'll see.
Anyway, I'll keep an eye on it. Next one up, Mindlink Mech. Super cool art on this, by the way. I am here for it. This is 2 and a blue artifact vehicle at rare. It is a 4/3 flying. Whenever Mindlink Mech becomes crewed for the first time each turn, until end of turn, Mindlink Mech becomes a copy of target non-legendary creature that crewed it this turn, except it's a 4/3. It's a vehicle artifact in addition to its other types, and it has flying, and it crews for 1. This is a really weird card.
If you ever want to play a fun game with your Twitch chat or your YouTube comments, just ask them to name cards that go really well with Mindlink Mech and count how many are legendary. It's like
that's funny.
Everybody forgets the non-legendary creature clause on there. I can't tell you how many times they've said Magda and Thalia and all these other things, and I'm like, go on. I mean, Magda was kind of made to crew vehicles, right? So, I mean, that's kind of unfortunate. I don't know that I would want to like, even if it didn't say non-legendary, I wouldn't want to like legend rule my Magda away with this anyway. So it seems like kind of a bad combo. It wouldn't gain its types. It gains the ability. Or no, it does become a copy. Okay, it becomes a copy. So there's a lot of like, how do you maximize this card? And there are a few cards kind of stand out, like Luminar Gas Pirate or anything with haste. Like you can copy it with this, like the bunny that we're going to get to. But any 1 or 2 mana card with haste gives this thing haste so it can attack the turn it comes down. But you don't need to copy much. Like if you get a little extra keyword juice or a little extra effect when you attack with this, it's already pretty good rate.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You just copy a Goldspan Dragon with this, and then you get a treasure. Let's go.
I mean, isn't Paxong Pup like it gets a +1/+1 counter if you have another wolf? So like,
oh, like at the beginning of combat? Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. Or so, like, yeah, you get any nice attack triggers from other creatures. I do like the fact that you get it, like, you don't have to attack to get this effect, which is cool. So it, like, for example, if you have a creature which has the ability to do a cool thing, except that it needs help to like get its power up, or, you know, it didn't have flying or whatever, right? This could be like a combo piece, right? So you turn this into a creature that wants to be any of the things that this vehicle makes it become. And then all of a sudden you have like some powerhouse creature combo that can go off. I don't know. It could come up, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So this card might show up in like some really weird places and do some powerful things. A card which has shown up in plenty of places and done very powerful things right on day one is this next card. Greasefang Okiba Boss. 1 black white for a legendary creature rat pilot at rare. It is a 4/3. At the beginning of combat on your turn, return target vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of your next end step. And yes, you don't need to be attacking with this. All you need is to have a vehicle in the yard when this is on the battlefield, when the combat step comes around, and you get in. And boy, have people been having fun with this card.
This card, I think it's easily misunderstood. It's like, okay. We're playing Vehicle Reanimator, so we have to discard, you know, we need to like rummage and blood token, discard some vehicle in the yard. So when we play this, it immediately like comes out and does the thing. And that is a deck you can build. You can try to maximize Greasefang. But I think people underestimate how often you just have to kill vehicles, because they're really, like the good ones are insanely good. Like,
yeah, you're going to let that chariot just get through every turn?
Yeah. Are you really going to let that happen? How many hits can you take from a Mindlink mech before you're just going to die? Not many. So people have to use the removal on it. And when they remove it, you play Greasefang and it comes back and hits them again. And then there are people who are going to be like, well, we want to keep it in the graveyard. At the end of combat, or at the end of the turn, it goes back to hand, not the graveyard. So we need a way to sacrifice it, right? If we had a way to sacrifice it, then we can get it back from the graveyard the next turn, right? Or another way to discard it, right? We have to keep discarding it. And I'm like, or you can just cast it. It's like you redrew it. Like, that's not, I mean, how bad is it to cast your chariot? It's not bad.
Dude, well, I mean, so that's the nasty thing, right? Let's say that your chariot, I mean, okay, let's say that you did discard your chariot in the first 2 turns of the game, and then you slam this on 3, you get in for a hasty chariot, you now have 6 cats on the battlefield, and then the next turn you can slam the chariot for an additional 2 cats. And they still have to deal with both the chariot and or Greasefang, right? So,
and,
I mean...
Yeah, and if they kill the chariot and not the Greasefang is going to bring it back for free. So they have to kill the Greasefang first, and it's not even the thing that's killing them. It's insane.
It's nasty. So now, of course, people have been having a grand old time comboing this in older formats with Parhelion 2, I think is the name of that vehicle.
Oh, God.
Now, that vehicle is, I mean, a total meme, but it is absolutely disgusting when it actually attacks, because you get in with like, I don't even remember the power and toughness on that thing. It's like a 6 power or an 8 power flyer, and it makes 2 attacking 4/4 angels when it gets in. So it's basically a 2-turn clock by itself. So yeah, you can do that in Historic. And
do you remember the crew cost of that?
It was like crew 8 or something, or like some insanely high crew cost, right? So, I mean, that's definitely like your wombo combo. If you could pick one vehicle to have attacking, it's that one. And so that's why people choose it for that, you know, for that combo. So, and I mean, it's pretty clean, right? Like you just faithless looting, put it in the yard, play this on 3, and unless your opponent has an immediate answer for the Greasefang, you just get to do the thing. But anyway, yeah, just to keep that in mind, that is the range on this card. So you know what? This strikes me a little bit as like people are going to view this as kind of the Tybalt's trickery of this set, you know? But I think that you made a good point, which is that this has a lot more like actually just a decent card to it than Tybalt's trickery did. Like you can play this fair and it still can be pretty unfair in that scenario. So sweet card. Awesome art and just a cool looking character as well. All right, Makotai Soul Ripper, 1 and a black. Artifact vehicle at rare. This is a 4/3. Whenever Makotai Soul Ripper attacks, you may sacrifice another artifact or creature. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Makotai Soul Ripper and it gains menace until end of turn, and it has a crew of 2. I mean, being able to get in for 4 or 5 damage on turn 3 with this thing is kind of scary.
It's really scary. And I don't think it's very good unless you're sacking to it when you trigger that evasion and that kind of growing effect. So I really want to try it in decks with treasure tokens and blood tokens and things that are easy to sacrifice. I kind of want to try like a sacrifice themed vampire deck, you know? Strikes me as really good with this. Immersturm Predator is a card that plays with other sacrifice cards, but if you tap your Immersturm Predator to this, the Predator gets a counter and this thing gets a counter, and it's a good crewer because if you tap it for any reason, you get that effect.
CGB really knows how to make me shake my head ruefully.
I try. That's what I'm here for.
So, I mean, I agree. This card definitely needs help. It's not just like Smuggler's Copter or whatever. Like it's that, and they knew that, right? By giving it crew 2, they knew that they were going to give you like a little puzzle to solve, basically. But I mean, certainly pulls its weight if you synergize it right. So, and yeah, just the ability to be like sending for up to 5 damage menace, like after a sweeper comes down or something, like could be pretty scary.
I kept trying to find a way to make my mono black Blood on the Snow decks able to be aggressive when they needed to be, especially because of Alrund's Epiphany, which they could never beat. Now Epiphany's gone, but blue control won't be. But like I tried things like Skyclave Shade and Jadar, and this hits so much harder than those ever could.
Yeah. It's kind of scary. That like if it becomes a thing in standard, like if you have like say some mono black deck that plays a couple of these or whatever, it could be pretty hard to deal with. Now this next card would definitely go into that deck. Okiba Reckoner Raid, 1 black mana for a common enchantment saga. And so chapter 1 and 2 are the same. Each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Chapter 3, it transforms into Nazumi Road Captain. This is a 2/2 menace, and vehicles you control have menace. So I actually played against this card, and it did what it was supposed to do, which was kill me. It was it was in a mono black aggro deck playing like Skyclave Shade and some of the other suspects you might imagine. And it does the thing. I mean, you get a 1 mana 2/2 menace. Menace is a really important part of this card because it mitigates to some degree the getting it late aspect. And especially like when you've already chucked some other, like you play this on turn 1, you play, 1 or 2 threats per turn for the next couple of turns. And then all of a sudden you're just like really sending with a lot of creatures. And, coupled with cheap removal and just kind of the right sequence of turns, this card can be really scary. And then another thing it can do is like, let's say that your control opponent stabilizes at like 2 life, and then you just slam one of these, they have to gain life or they're dead. So that, in the late game, like if you've been doing a good job of pounding your opponent's face, that drain can actually get them. So, I don't know how impressed I am by this card, but I watched someone execute on it and it was fairly convincing.
I think people will underestimate how this being an enchantment really allows it to play around removal, because one of the things with vehicles is like you try to do some kind of curve and then you need to crew at the right time or have crew at the right time, but also need to play your other cards. So if you play this on 1 and then you play Soul Ripper, the card we just talked about, on 2, On turn 3, this just becomes a creature, and whether or not they have a shock for it, it's already there to crew the Soul Ripper, so the Soul Ripper can attack, and you still have probably 3 mana just hanging out to do something with, either to defend your Soul Ripper, add more gas to the battlefield, disrupt the opponent further. And I think that that's really, like, you think about that sequence, there's nowhere in there for a Fatal Push, a Blood Chief's Thirst, or a Play with Fire to disrupt it. So, like, I mean, I guess you could try to Fatal Push the Ripper, but there's mana open, so maybe now you can defend it. It seems really good.
I agree. So, I mean, the price is right on this card. Easy to see scenarios where it becomes a player. So definitely keep an eye on that one. And it's a common, so what's not to love? This next card has been very popular, and I'm interested to see where it ends up. CGB's smiling and nodding. So here we go. Reckoner Bankbuster. Is that a foreshadowing of how busted it's going to be? It's a 2-cost artifact vehicle at rare. It is a 4/4. Reckoner Bankbuster enters the battlefield with 3 charge counters on it. Pay 2 and tap it to remove a charge counter from Reckoner Bankbuster. If you do draw a card, then if there are no charge counters on Reckoner Bankbuster, create a treasure token and a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token with this creature crews vehicles as though its power were 2 greater, and it has crew 3. So a nice little story built into this card, I would say. And how good has this card been for you, CGB?
This card is the story of MTG Arena in 2022, the Bank Buster.
There you go. Yep. Well played.
I'm not convinced how good this card is. I am convinced that you can probably do a lot worse with your wild cards than craft a bunch of these and just put them in every deck. The only decks where I think it's an absolute disaster would be like all in perfect curve aggro. And even then, I'm not positive that you can't have 2 of these in white or green aggro. How bad could it be? You play around sweepers, you have a little bit of card advantage if you need it, and you have a lot of things that can crew it. And it's so cheap, and it does so many things.
Like, think about like mono green, for example. You drop this on 2, and pretty much any of your creatures are going to crew it when they come down on turn 3. So
I'm reminded of when I tried to prove that every deck could be a Yorion deck. I played like Yorion mono red, you know. I hit Mythic with Yorion mono white aggro, you know. I think I could honestly make a YouTube series of bank busting mono red and bank busting mono green, and like, why not? It fits everything, but it also has synergy with so many cards from the set. Like an insane amount of cards from this set and previous sets are so good with this. I mean, I spent a lot of time today playing with this card and Teferi, who slows the sunset.
Ooh,
it just, I mean, nice. Sometimes we're just attacking with it, you know, and also drawing with it. Sometimes we're just using it for a blocker out of nowhere. It's the card is hard to describe how to play with, and for those who are going to play with it, it's currently bugged on Magic Arena. Hopefully this won't last very long, but right now it doesn't hold priority ever. It plays like the card is a sorcery speed card, but if you go to activate it at instant speed, it lets you, but it doesn't light up and it doesn't hold the priority. So if it's your only instant speed effect on the battlefield, you have to put stops on your opponent's turn in order to use it or stay in full control, which is cringy and horrible, and they need to fix that. But don't let that sour you on the card. The first time you play it and you're like, I didn't know it could only be used as a sorcery. It's not true. It's fake news. But the card's sweet.
It's always got to be something, right? And I mean, this is basically this is kind of like the ugly marriage of like Smuggler's Copter and Maze Mind Tome or something like that. It's got a little bit of both of those cards in it, I guess. But
I guess some treasure map, because it makes a token. It makes a treasure when you hit.
Oh, it does.
When you count it down to 0.
That's true. That's true. So it is a super weird card, but also a really cool card and maybe a really powerful card. So very nice. Let's see here. I actually don't have this next card linked. So
Oh, Mech Titan Core, the one that,
Mech
I mean,
Titan?
You can read it if you want to. It's Voltron.
Oh, do you not want to read it? I
No,
don't
go
really
for
want to read it. Okay, the short version of this card, Crafties, is you make this cheap artifact and then you exile it and 4 other artifacts, and it makes this big hasty 10/10 creature with all of these abilities. And I think that this is a meme.
4 other artifact creatures. You can't, no treasures, no blood tokens on this one. Yeah.
So I don't really want to go into it, but that's the gist of that card. And hard for me to imagine it being actually competitive, but you're going to see some people on Twitch just do the thing.
Dude, if you're ever just toilet gaming and you're not paying close attention, and then suddenly there is a 10/10 artifact creature with flying, vigilance, trample, lifelink, and haste that's all colors killing you, it's this. You got memed on.
Yep. The dream became a meme, which became your face getting smashed. Okay, next card. Invoke Justice. 1 white. White. +3 at rare. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of creatures and or vehicles target player controls. So, I mean, if you get to do the thing with this, right? If you get to like get a vehicle back and then just totally buff the whole team, it's going to look pretty scary, right?
Yeah. It's a really good, it's a strong amount of value in a card. Assuming you can get a pretty strong permanent off of it, which shouldn't be that impossible. It's another quad white.
That is the main issue with the card for sure. It's hard to imagine most of the vehicles decks that I'm thinking of are multicolored, and it's going to be kind of hard to hit this on curve, but maybe with like your treasure from your bank buster and a couple of other things going right, this could make sense.
There are some interesting cards. We might get to the Restoration of Iganjo in this podcast, which it does let you discard a card to then bring back a card of mana value 2 or less. So you could discard something much bigger and the next turn invoke the big permanent you discarded.
Yep, that's a very good point and a cool card we almost certainly will discuss. Next card, Hotshot Mechanic. 1 white mana for an artifact creature, Fox Pilot. Foxy. This is a 2/1, and it crews vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. Have you seen anyone play this? Does this just go into all the vehicle decks?
I haven't played it, and I haven't seen anybody play it. The main thing I need to comment on this, as cool as it sounds and how it looks like it fits in so many themes, this might be the worst time to play a 2/1 creature that I have ever seen. But it seems like they do nothing, and there's so many shambling gas eye twitches, and like the creatures that come down on turn 2 are just so much bigger, and I don't know, man. I don't even know if I want to play like Usher of the Fallen in white right now. Feels really bad to me.
I agree. I totally agree. It's a vulnerability that's really built in at the moment, and it's kind of keeping aggro down, which isn't a bad thing, to be honest. Honestly, now this is another pet card of mine that might not really get there. But honestly, the card that makes me most excited to want to play a card like this is actually Disruption Protocol, which is the artifact themed counterspell of the set.
Blue counter target spell if you also tap an artifact, or you have to pay 1 more for it and it's a cancel. You want to play, you're telling me that you want to play a 1 mana 2/1 off a dual land somehow, and somehow next turn have counterspell up?
I'm not saying that that's the plan, Code.
No, what's the plan?
I'm just saying that like a deck, like I'm more inclined to put this card in my deck if I'm also Disruption Protocoling, right? So like, for example, I could see vehicle decks running a couple copies of this because it's just a cheap counter spell. And if you're doing the Azorius vehicles thing that they're kind of telegraphing anyway, then it could definitely be a cool card. So this is the kind of card which could And now this is a small if, right? This isn't like, I'm playing Disruption Protocol, so I play Hotshot Mechanic. It's just one of those tiny little synergies, even coming in from the sideboard, that might make both cards better.
I see what you're saying 100% now, and I can promise you there are better cards.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's
fair. But that synergy you're talking about is exactly why a number of other cheap cards we're going to talk about are really good.
Yeah, sweet. All right, so we'll definitely get that. But yeah, I'm low on this card as well. I would not start it in any of my decks. All right, this next card, though, has been making waves, and for good reason. It is a very powerful Magic card, Lion Sash. So now we've gotten onto the equipment section. So here we go. Lion Sash, 1 and a white artifact creature, equipment cat at rare. It is a 1/1. So this is part of the cycle of equipments that come down as creatures. So if you play this, when you play this, it'll come down as a 1/1. And then you can reconfigure it for 2, which basically means equipping it. You also pay that cost if you want to unattach it from a creature.
And turn it back into a creature so its power and toughness works again. Yep.
Yeah. Now, just to be clear, if it's stuck on one creature, you don't have to reconfigure twice to get it onto another creature, right? You can just pay 2 to shift it from one creature to another.
Yes.
Right? Okay,
that is correct.
So it's basically exactly like equipment was, except that you can just pay some amount. You can pay the reconfigure cost to unattach it and turn it back into a creature as well. Okay, and then it also has this ability, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a permanent card, put a +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. And equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. So, CGB, I know you'll have some smart things to say about this card, so take it away.
It seems like a fine card. When you play with it, the things you can do with it get really stupid. So, for example, something I've done pretty often to great effect with this is I attack with it, and then I reconfigure it to an untapped creature so that it basically has its stats available to block attached to that creature. I mean,
that's kind of like makeshift vigilance, huh?
Yeah, it's like makeshift vigilance. And that is very cool. You can do there's a lot of just kind of bizarre things. When you have a Teferi who slows the sunset and this and like any other card or something to crew. So let's talk about the Bank Buster. You can get your Lion Slash up to a 3. You can crew the Bank Buster. Then you can reconfigure and attach the Lion Sash to the Bank Buster and crack in for 7.
Yeah, that's dirty, dude. That's super dirty.
It's like the best pilot ever. It adds its stats to the vehicle. It's kind of insane.
I mean, another simple but very effective aspect of this card is that you can like you said, you can attack someone with it and then reattach it to even some dorky creature. And then if your opponent removes that creature or plays a sweeper the next turn, you effectively dodge the sweeper by attaching this to a creature, right? So I think that like skilled aggro mages are going to give control players nightmares playing this card because they're going to like configure and reconfigure and stuff and just basically play it in a manner which is always going to be punishing their opponent for whatever line they might take. So I think this is going to be a very skill testing card. You're going to have like, pro tours where like there's these really interesting board states, and how people proceed using cards like this will really determine the outcome of the game.
So you think it's a pro tour level card? You think it's pro play powerful?
I do. Yeah,
I do too.
It's just, here's the thing, right? So Scavenging Ooze proved itself to be like a multi-format all-star and, very highly played throughout pretty much its entire tenure in Standard. This card is arguably better. So one of the wonderful things about this card is that you get a counter for any permanent. So it's not just creatures, and that's really nice. Uh-huh. Now, I guess some of the downsides are that you don't gain the life. So
just have a lifelink body and attach this to it. You'll be impressed what happens.
Yep. But I think that that's a small trade-off. I mean, it also comes down as a 1/1, so that might matter with, cards like the zombie, the shambling ghast, right?
It's a pretty bad card on turn 2, if I'm being real. Yes. You really don't want this to be your 2-drop.
Yep. Excellent point. So just keep an eye out for that. But otherwise, I think this card's going to be a player. It's probably going to end up being like a top 10 card in the set.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, Blade of the Oni. 1 and a black, 3/1. This is another creature of the same kind, creature artifact equipment. And this one's a demon. It's a mythic. It has menace. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 5/5, has menace, and is a black demon in addition to its other colors and types. And it reconfigures for 2 black. So CGB, this is like a mythic equipment, creature, etc. And I'm just not that scared of it. Do I have this card wrong?
I don't think so. I haven't played against it. I haven't played with it. It's one of those cards I've thought about adding to a number of decks where I could make my eye twitch a 5/5, and that sounds fun. And then it just ends up getting cut. It never makes the final cut so far. So unless I'm also missing something with the card, I'm not excited about it, and I wouldn't craft it.
Yeah, it's just like a 3/1 menace on 2 is just so unimpressive.
Mm-hmm.
And then the reconfigure cost is expensive, and what it gives you is powerful, but just the numbers don't quite add up for me. So let's talk about this next one, Lizard Blades. 1 and a red. And this one is an equipment lizard, which I just love that type line. It's a rare. It's a 1/1 double striker, and equipped creature has double strike, and it reconfigures for 2. So this card could be scary.
Double strike is a thing. Yeah. So this in Mindlink Mech is automatically 8 damage without even having to reconfigure or equip it.
It's fun.
That's
fun
because
times.
It just becomes a copy. I feel like there's a lot of spots for this card. It's cheap. It's not going to cost you too much. And just like with the Lion, you can move it around in such a way to play around sweepers or just make the opponent's life miserable. Basically, one of these on the battlefield means that your attack is always going to be pretty good and potentially better than the opponent's. And I just think that requires some attention. That's pretty strong.
Yeah. Again, just like another card that's going to give control mages a huge headache. And I like that point you made about the Lion Sash. It also applies to this. This is a 2-drop, but it's really better later in the game. And so when you choose to play this and how you choose to work this into your curve, I think is going to largely determine your success with the card, and how you visualize this in your deck's curve, I think is really going to play out well. Another thing I want to note is that this will play very well with +1/+1 counters and other stuff like that. So keep an eye out for those synergies.
Reconfigure with vehicles is pretty sick in general because you can pilot the vehicle, you can reconfigure it to attach to the vehicle to get the effect. At the end of the turn, when the vehicle stops being a creature, you don't have to unattach your lizard blades. It goes back to being a creature. It will be tapped if it crewed, but there's some times where that can matter. Maybe you crew it with something else, and then you can untap and have an equipped creature, or just reconfigure it to something else the next turn without having to detach it. I don't know. It's really weird how these cards work, but they work together a lot better than I expected.
Yeah. I'm impressed with these cards. The Lion ones may be better, but I think this is a very solid card as well. You'll probably be happy to put it in all kinds of red aggressive decks. This next one, Ogre Head Helm, 1 and a red, another rare equipment Ogre in this case. This is a 2/2. Super weird art, by the way. 2/2, equipped creature gets +2/+2. Whenever Ogre Head Helm or equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, discard your hand, then draw 3 cards, and then you reconfigure for 3. So, this solves one of the problems that red aggressive decks run into, is that they play all of these cheap creatures that turn sideways, and then all of a sudden they're top decking, and this just kind of gasses you up again. Having said that, I'm not as impressed with this card as the other ones that we've spoken about. I'm going to have to see this one in action. What do you think?
I don't like the idea of sacrificing my creatures. Even though you can turn it into 3 cards, if you're playing red, giving up your board presence is a really dangerous thing. So it feels like it's better in a sacrifice deck, but those usually have better ways to do it for value, like Deadly Dispute, and they usually have cards in their hand, so discarding their hand sucks. So Reconfigure 3 is a lot different also from Reconfigure 1 or 2.
That, for me, that is the breaker on this card. I think if it was Reconfigure 2, I'd be a lot more open to it, because you have a couple extra mana, maybe your curve's a little awkward, you didn't draw quite right, and you just get to put that mana into like improving another creature or attack and then, equip, all that kind of stuff. So for me, that's what kills the card.
Yeah, somebody will have to convince me before I craft this card. Yeah,
totally. All right, this last one, interesting card. I think it could be a player. So the final one on this same list, it is also a creature. This is an equipment rabbit. It's an uncommon. It costs 1 red mana, Rabbit Battery. It is a 1/1 haste. An equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has haste, and it reconfigures for a red. So I think this is a really cool and surprisingly strong card. What about you?
I'm kind of scared of it.
Yeah, dude.
It feels like when the red mages get their stuff together and start playing more of these, that they're going to realize like it's just some free damage early, and then as their cards get outclassed and maybe have trouble attacking, that you just pile the batteries onto one thing. And it just comes in for more and more damage, or you pile this and the lizard blades onto something and pile in for a bunch of damage. I think this card is terrifying, and it has so many different like synergies in the format of just being an artifact, being a cheap creature that can pilot things. Just there's a number of ways to play this card, a number of cards in the new set that work with it, a number of old cards, and maybe Hasty Red is back on the menu.
I agree. Honestly, this is one of the better red aggressive 1-drops I've seen in a while. I'm pretty high on this card. I think this card's going to do a lot of work.
Yeah, agreed. And uncommon, nice. So go get your rabbit batteries.
Yeah, get your rabbit on, baby. All right.
I'll grab the reading reins for a minute. We're going to read what'd you call this section? You called it enchantments and artifacts.
So
wait, what's this? Matter. Artifacts and enchantments matter. Okay.
So basically, here's the tricky thing with this is that we have artifact decks, we have enchantment decks, and then we have a bunch of cards that seem to care about both. So I just kind of pile them on into this section. It's going to be a little bit disorganized, but I just couldn't come up with a better way to organize them. So it is what it is.
First saga is an uncommon called Michiko's Reign of Truth, 1 and a white. Chapter 1 and 2 are the same. Chapter 1 and 2, target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each artifact and or enchantment you control. Chapter 3, exile this saga and return it. I'm just going to call Chapter 3 from now on, like flip this saga. Even though it does have, summoning sickness. But you get an enchantment creature, human noble 0/0, and Portrait of Michiko gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. So buff for your things and buff for your things, and then flip it over and get a creature that's hopefully also huge. What do you think?
I mean, for me, this is an almost strictly better all that glitters, right? Like, this is like a compelling... Okay, because here's the thing. How many hits did you usually need to get in with all that glitters before you either ended the game or your opponent dealt with it, right? Like, not that many most of the time. And the fact for this, okay, so like this will make one of your creatures a huge threat for 2 turns in a row. Your opponent will have to find some way to deal with that. And then even if they do, it itself becomes a huge threat. So I think in any deck that would have wanted to play all that glitters, I think this is like an easy shoe-in, basically.
If anybody's afraid of playing it on curve, just play the rabbit on turn 1 that we just talked about. And then on turn 2, when you play this, the rabbit is attacking as a 3/3. And then the next turn, it's attacking as a 3/3 again. And then the next turn, you have a minimum like 3/3 creature, assuming you did something with your mana after attacking with that rabbit. So, I mean, that 1/2 punch did like 7 damage and left a body. It's pretty great for 2 mana. I mean, that's hard to beat.
There's also cost reduction in this set. We'll read that card probably soon, but yeah, this is a lot of damage, power, and toughness coming out of this cheap little saga. So yeah, I'm impressed.
Next card is one I've had a lot of fun with. The Restoration of Iganjo. It's 2 and a white for an enchantment saga. Chapter 1, search your library for a plains. Reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle. Chapter 2, discard a card. You may return target permanent card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Chapter 3, flip the saga. You get the 3/4 Vigilant. Whenever this Architect of Restoration Fox Monkey thing attacks or blocks, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token as a 3/4. So I've actually played with the card now. We talked about it a little bit like 2 weeks ago. It's a lot of value. The only times it's bad is when you have like 2 or 3 of them, you're taking a beating and you haven't affected the board in any way. So like if you play turn 2 Brain Buster or Bank Buster, sorry, and turn 3 this, you haven't really affected the board. If the opponent's attacking you with creatures, you're just too low on life when you would finally flip this and 1 Brutal Cathar ruins you. But as long as you like affect the board, this card is kind of nuts because you can just do things like turn 2 Foretell Doomscar, turn 3 play this, turn 4 Doomscar, turn 5 you get the free 3/4 creature and you do something else to answer whatever they tried to follow up your Doomscar with. And it takes over really fast. Another really fun thing is to get back like a Professor of Symbology and you go learn a lesson and you have the mana open to use it, you know? Just right there. So this card is so much value, and I'm really loving it.
So I've watched you do like one of your favorite tricks that you used to do with Elspeth Conquers Death, where like you discard something and then you reanimate it for free with the saga. The cool thing about this card is that it actually just builds it in for you. If you have a 2-drop in your hand, you can discard it and just put it straight on the battlefield with that one trigger. And that's pretty powerful.
One of the forgotten hits I found with it is Malevolent Hermit, which if you're playing against a counterspell deck and you get that thing back for free, they don't like that.
No, they sure don't. Or even if they didn't see it coming, you know, like you slam this on one turn and then the next turn, suddenly you just got a free Hermit, basically. And now, you know, you're likely to have the mana up to actually activate it plus do something else. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And I'm sure there's so many good permanents, like including your Bank Buster or whatever. So, I mean, that's a clean little thing you can do. I definitely think that if you're playing this card, you are heavily incentivized to run lots of 2-cost permanents because that's how you're really going to get your money with this card, I think.
The deck I've been playing it a ton in is Black-White Tokens. And there's just a lot of just get back your Eye Twitch, just get back your Shambling Ghast. But I was starting to move away from Meathook Massacre in that deck because my opponents would just tax the hell out of it or they'd play big green things. I never had enough mana to kill all their stuff. But just this thing ramping you a land in Black-White Tokens, you just now always seem to have the mana to Meathook Massacre or do all these other things. I found it to be a really good card, as long as you set up some defense around it.
I mean, here's the other thing, right? Getting back a Meathook Massacre with that chapter 2. I mean, there are a lot of decks that will go out of their way to blow up your Massacre because it just nets you so much value over the course of a long game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even just grabbing one back in the late game could be a real swing.
Yep. I give this card an A+. I really love playing it. I think the only way it doesn't make a long-term impact in the format is if just like it's good with Bank Buster, but it's like low tempo. So you don't want to play it in the same deck as Bank Buster that often, unless it's post board, in which case, I don't know if the format just has too many other ways to get value that are cheaper than this. That's, I think, the only way it doesn't see play.
Yeah. No, really solid card. And I've played with this card a bit too, and I totally agree that the downside is it's a bit slow. So like you do have to think about how this fits into your curve and what you're going to do with it. But yeah, really strong card. I did want to talk about these two that you X'd out though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I can read them if you want.
Yeah, you can read them.
Okay. I'm going to read these next ones because CGB doesn't like them. Behold the Unspeakable, 3 blue. This is an uncommon saga. Chapter 1, creatures -2/-0 until your next turn. Chapter 2, if you have 1 or fewer cards in hand, draw 4 cards. Otherwise, scry 2, then draw 2 cards. Chapter 3, this transforms into Vision of the Unspeakable, which is how CGB feels about it. Enchantment creature spirit, 0/0 flying trample. Vision of the Unspeakable gets +1/+1 for each card in your hand. You don't like this card?
I don't see how this card is playable.
Maybe I'm just memeing, but this card's made its way into some of my early decks via vehicles such as like Storm the Festival, for example. This card is a freaking house, dude. Okay.
Yeah.
I have regularly, with this card, just like hit it for free off of a Storm the Festival, and then next turn drawn 4 cards. Meanwhile, I'm blanking my opponent's next attack step.
Most free 5-drops are good.
I mean, granted, but how many of them draw you 4 cards and do other things, man? I'm just saying.
You're right. The other ones are out there just winning the game. This one draws you 4 cards, and you...
Dude, all I'm saying is this card has punched above its weight for me. I'm going to continue to brew with it, and I think it's great.
Okay.
This next card... I'm a little surprised you're not going for this, actually, because I think this card can fit into a number of shells. The Modern Age, 1 and a blue. This is a common enchantment saga. Chapters 1 and 2 are draw a card, then discard a card. And chapter 3, it comes back as a 2/3 flying spirit. So just not quite good enough for you?
I don't know why I'd play it instead of like Faithful Mending. You know, because if you're going to do this card neutral, draw 2, discard 2, eventually you get a 2/3, so you have to really want the 2/3. When and where do I really want the 2/3? I think it's a really good comparison. And for me, the answer is like, I totally agree. I think they fill a similar spot. I think you're going to want to play these in control decks, some kind of a setup kind of a deck. I think that this could go well into like more of a tap out deck. Let's say that you have some kind of like saga heavy deck. The decks that I've been putting this into are actually trying to get up to some reanimator shenanigans. So like, for example, playing another saga, where did I put it? Inventive Iteration, which can like bring an artifact back from the graveyard. Or like if you're playing with Tamiyo, for example, the Phyrexian Tamiyo, you can like dump stuff into the yard for it. So I also think it goes well if like, I was talking about the deck earlier where you're sacrificing enchantments to like reanimate other enchantments from your graveyard and stuff, and just like having a cheap one to sack was really good in that deck. So I think that this card can fill a specific niche in decks like that, like decks that want to like put more permanents on the board or in the graveyard and also get selection. So basically decks that aren't wanting to play at instant speed. That's the kind of place I see this. Now, granted, I'm not like saying this just belongs in like all kinds of decks, but I've been brewing with it and I've found it to be a role player. Cool. I feel like there's better. I feel like you deserve better, Arjuna. There's got to be better.
Well, you'll have to convince me. Take us to the next card here.
All right, we're going to talk about Reality Heist. Dun 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 dun. This is 5 blue instant uncommon. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 artifact cards from among them. Put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Dig through artifact time?
Okay, so there's a weird tension of this card, right? Mm-hmm. Ideally, you're hitting like 2 really good artifacts, but in order to make that happen reliably, you're filling your deck with a bunch of crappy artifacts. So
cheap artifacts, low cost artifacts.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe crappy's coming down a little too hard on them.
I mean, this can use like treasures and blood tokens and things you just incidentally get, clues.
Yeah,
so
that's true. No, that's a really good point. I like the right deck. You'll know the deck that wants this basically when you see it. It's some kind of artifact combo deck. Yeah, it could be quite powerful.
I'm already playing decks in Standard that have Ingenious Smith in them and are really trying to hit a critical mass of artifacts in the deck, and I still haven't found room for this card. There's just this big, like you said, there's this tension that you need a certain number of artifacts, and then once you have a decent number of artifacts, what do you do with it? You get more artifacts. You need more artifacts is the answer to your problem, and maybe just the answer is more bank busters, man. Just more, like, if we have all 4, maybe we can get enough value to win this game.
Yeah, this strikes me as a finisher or like a find my combo in like some, win the game in one turn kind of an artifact combo deck, probably in an older format, where you just need to find that one piece that ties it all together and then you go off. So unless you're playing a deck like that, kind of hard to imagine playing it.
The next card I've got here is Thirst for Knowledge. 2 and a blue, instant, draw 3 cards, then you discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact card. Yeah. I
mean, you like to draw cards, so that's my question to you. Have you put this in your decks?
No. I can't find room.
That's what I'm saying, man.
It's boomer magic. It's too old. Like you can play Restoration of a Ganjo and get value that also creates a battlefield presence. You can play Bankbuster and get value that will eventually create a battlefield presence. You can play some of the Planeswalkers like Teferi Who Slows the Sunset or Tezzeret and get value that also has a battlefield presence. You don't need to be doing these kind of plays that much anymore.
Totally agree. I mean, even, what's that that uncommon white creature that like it's a 2-drop and it searches the top of your library for another artifact?
Ingenious Smith.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
right?
that's perfect example.
That's modern magic for you right there. You don't need to turn to some, old school instant speed card draw spell to get your card advantage. Anyway.
Soul Transfer is 1 in a black sorcery. It's rare. Choose 1 if you control an artifact and an enchantment as you cast this spell. You may choose both. The 2 choices are exile target creature or planeswalker and return target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand, giving you a little removal 2-for-1 opportunity if you have an enchantment and an artifact. What do you think?
I mean, if it all lines up, this is absolutely great. That's a big if, though. So this card requires for a lot of things to be true, right? So A of all, artifact, B of all, enchantment, C of all, you have to have a good target because it's a 3-cost removal spell, right? So it has to be good in the matchup. And then 4 of all, you have to have a creature or planeswalker in your graveyard, right? So we're talking enchantment, artifact, planeswalker that you've already played. Now, there are some decks when I could, examples, I could see this. Like, for example, any like Teferi Esper deck, for example, right? That's likely to be playing, Key to the Archive, maybe, the Celestis, maybe you get some creatures in there, right? But you just I feel like there's a very specific deck that this is going to end up going into, and maybe even like a post board kind of a card, perhaps. So narrow, but quite strong when it does its thing. What do you think?
Super high ceiling, but the floor is fine. Just sorcery speed, 3 mana, kill a thing. We don't play that anymore, but there are times where it's not the worst, and it's better than having nothing for sure. I've done the both sides thing. I think the best thing I got back was like a Dockside Chef or a Shambling Ghast or something. Right. I just got a 1-drop back, and it was like, okay. I've ended up cutting this from all the decks that played it because I was like, I'll just have more Vanishing Verse and Rite of Oblivion. Like, those cards are way too good.
Yeah, you're right, man. I mean, we just don't like to spend 3 mana for our removal spells anymore, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right.
Cool.
I've got Experimental Synthesizer. This is how
this is a spicy one.
Oh, dude, this is how we make music in the 80s, baby.
Heck yeah.
With
swords.
Yeah, it's a very experimental synthesizing going on. All right. 1 red mana. Looks like an egg with a sword in it in the art. This is an artifact. It's a common. When this card enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of turn, you may play that card. 2 in a red, sacrifice this, Create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with vigilance. Activate only as a sorcery. It's a sneaky, like maybe 3 cards in one, if you can make it all work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this looks like one of your classic, like, deck full of cheap things, plays a lot of cards, goes off, you're suddenly dead kind of a card. Good thing to note is that you can just go ahead and sack this to your Deadly Dispute and you still get to exile that extra card. So you don't have to sack it to itself. You can sack it to something else. In fact, I think that's really where you're going to get your money with this, is having like multiple different avenues to sack this. And once you do, I think it's going to be a very strong card.
It even says leaves the battlefield. You can blink this and get the effects. I don't know exactly where or what's going to be doing that for you, but it's kind of an absurd amount of potential value in one thing, and it makes some cards like Disruption Protocol or anything that involves having artifacts on the battlefield. This is a card that makes those cards better. A serious synergy piece for the set.
Totally. Now, a note, crafties, don't just go jamming this into your random red decks. That's not going to be the right approach. You're going to need, like CGB said, it's going to need to butter multiple sides of your bread to really get your money out of it. So just keep that in mind.
The next card is Kumano faces Kakazan.
Kakazan.
Kumano faces Kakazan.
Kakazan.
This was the CGB versus Croaky's battle in olden days. And
there you go.
Across the times.
Mortal enemies since time immemorial.
Chapter 1. It's a saga, of course, an enchantment. Chapter 1. This card deals 1 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control.
Sorry. I feel like they built it into the name. It faces, dude. It just goes face. There we go. All right, continue.
Chapter 2. When you cast your next creature spell this turn, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Chapter 3. Exile this saga, then return it to the battlefield transformed as Etching of Kumano, who I assume won the battle. As haste, it's a 2/2, and if a creature dealt damage this turn by a source you controlled would die, exile it instead. A lot of little bits of red cards built into this, right?
Yeah. Okay, here's the first thing that bothered me about this card. The wording on the backside is super confusing. If a creature dealt damage this turn, which turn are we talking about? The turn it flips? Which turn? This turn. No, like, is that what it is? Like, it's only the turn that it flips where you get that effect?
No. I've played against this card. It lasted multiple turns for sure. So why does it say that?
Why does it say that?
Why does it say that?
I don't really understand, right?
I don't know.
Anyway, whatever.
It sounds like it's part of a saga chapter, right? Because that would make sense. That's what I'm saying. But it's not. It's on the backside. It's a permanent ability. Every turn that this is in play is the turn.
That's what I'm saying, man.
I mean, if this dies and then something else dies later in the turn, does it still get exiled?
It could be.
Like cat oven nonsense? I don't know.
What it means is
maybe
if something dies next turn that isn't this turn, watch out. That's all I'm saying. I don't know. It's really weird. This reminds me a lot of that black one, the Okiba raid or whatever. This kind of does the same thing in a red aggressive deck. And,
kinda, but there's stuff for modified creatures that's really hype. So then when you cast your next creature spell this turn, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. There's a lot of different like modified matters, but there's this card, I think it's called Shatter Skull Charger, which is 1 in a red for a 4/3 trample haste, but it returns to your hand at end turn unless it has a +1/+1 counter on it.
So you can see what you did there.
Yeah, you play this on 2. Turn 3, you can have a 5/4 trample haste that stays on the battlefield. That's a lot of damage.
It's a lot of damage, a little janky, but we'll forgive it. I
don't know if it's janky. I don't know. Not
convinced.
And
I mean, again, it's kind of like that other one we were talking about. Like the other one has menace. This has haste that also mitigates the slowness of it being the backside of a saga. So I could definitely see this one showing up in all kinds of places.
Yeah, I think Red and Boros Mages should try this card and see how it goes. And since I'm not good at either of those, I'm just going to have faith. But it's an uncommon, so, budget.
Yeah,
let's go.
Final thing to note, you're going to feel super TO'd if you minus your Planeswalker and then your opponent just finishes it off with this next turn. That's going to feel pretty bad.
True. All right. Scrap Welder is 2 and a red for a Goblin Artificer. It's a 3/3. It's rare. Tap it and sacrifice an artifact with mana value X. Return target artifact card with mana value less than X from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste this turn. Arjuna, what are you doing with this?
Just memeing. Just all kinds of combo memeing, fun, good times. This isn't a card that's playable by itself, obviously, but there's all kinds of stuff that you can do with this card. Don't ask me for examples, though.
I got nothing, man. I got nothing for this card.
Fair enough. Let's keep moving along.
Voltron Surge is 1 and a red instant. As an additional cost to cast, you may sacrifice an artifact. This card does 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If this spell's additional cost was paid and you sacrificed an artifact, it deals 4 damage instead. It's a common. 1 mana
combo with your synthesizer.
Instant speed, 4 damage.
Yeah.
Kind of a combo with any cheap artifact, because assuming you're playing decent artifact creatures like Lizard Blades, Lion Slash, the Rabbit, the opponent might eventually just have to try to kill it. And then you can be like, ha, surprise, I sacrifice it and kill your thing instead. Taste it.
Yeah. And I mean, you might have a treasure lying around, in which case this just becomes 1 and a red, deal 4 at instant speed, which is totally fine as well.
Yeah, really solid. Yeah. I remember Reckless Rage, it still shows up in Prowess Historic decks sometimes. 1 mana, deal 4 damage to a creature was surprisingly effective, and this gives you a way to do it in a format doing a thing that's already looking good. Artifacts already look good.
Absolutely.
Generous Visitor is 1 green for a 1/1 creature spirit at uncommon, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature.
This card does the business, man. This has plenty of Pelt Collector written on it. You know the deck this wants to go in. It's just one of those aggressive enchantment creature decks. I've definitely okay, the most tilting thing about this card is I played twice against the deck that was wanting to play this, and it's the ideal curve, right? Is they play this on turn 1, and then they play that card Jukai Naturalist on turn 2, which makes all their enchantments cheaper. Which is a hell of a curve, by the way, because that card itself is an enchantment. The thing that tilts me is that the 2 times I played against it, they had the curve, turn 1 the thing, turn 2 the thing, turn 3 empty that, do all the rubbish, right? It was so annoying. But this thing gets big real quick.
You're so worked up, the camera's losing focus trying to keep track of you.
Dude, it was so annoying. It was I was does this just happen every time?
Yeah.
And the thing that's annoying about it is that both of those cards are really bad when you don't curve them, right? When you just rip this thing off the top in the late game, it's terrible. But when you do the curve, it's quite powerful. So.
What he's trying to say is he really hates getting curved on by random enchantment piles. So Arjuna has no respect for them. He sees them as just lucky, inferior mages, but somehow they always have it. It makes him sad.
Here's the problem, right? When I build these decks, I never have these cards in my opening hand. I always have these awkward curves. I draw a bunch of dorky enchantments, right? Meanwhile, my opponents are just curving like an absolute legend. Whatever, the deck this wants to go into, and if that deck ends up being good, this is going to be a very, very good card in it.
The next 4 cards all go in this deck. They're all just 2-drops that do stuff with enchantments. Okay, the next 4 cards. I'm not even kidding. So I'm gonna just kind of read them. So here we have a Kami of Transcendence, 1 green, 2/2 Spirit Trample. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a +1/+1 counter on this at the beginning of each end step. This is so weird. If an enchantment was put into your graveyard from the battlefield this turn, you may return Kami of Transcendence from your graveyard to your hand. Is this the 2-drop that we play with that card?
Sure. I mean, it's one of them.
It's one of them. Honestly, there's too many. There's too many, right? And this one's not an enchantment. That's kind of a problem.
That is a ding against it. Yeah.
Because the next one is Weaver of Harmony, which is an enchantment. This is 1 and a green for a 2/2 enchantment creature snake druid at rare. Other enchantment creatures you control get +1/+1, and a green and tap it to copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source. You may choose new targets for the copy. What are we doing with this one?
I mean, double O-ring. It's pretty good, right?
Not bad. Double saga triggers.
Double saga, any saga, except I guess the flip, right? You can't like make 2 creatures with this, can you? Probably not.
I mean, why? Yeah, not the flip. No, the flip is like you would just exile it twice, but it would already be gone. So I don't think it would work.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. Now I'm curious what the hell is up with that.
However, I mean, in my opinion, like you put a saga in your deck because it had a good effect in your deck, and getting to double it up for the price of 1 green mana is very, very it's price to move. So if you get even 1 double trigger off a saga, I gotta feel like you're way ahead in that game.
This doubles your Hallowed Haunting triggers. You just get 2 Anointed Processions, you know?
Yep, that's pretty good. So yeah, I mean, this card is price to move. It is competitively statted. It buffs the team. It's a lord. I don't know, man. If the deck this goes into is remotely good, this could be like absolutely one of the best cards in it.
Or you just might not want to spend wildcards on it, and you can craft Jukai Naturalist. This is a green and a white for an uncommon enchantment creature, human monk, 2/2 for 2. Again, lifelink. Enchantment spells cost 1 less to cast. And
there you go.
It's not a card advantage like run away with the game ability. It's just straight up enchant ramp. It's turn 1 that spirit that gets counters. Turn 2 this. Turn 3 Hallowed Haunting. Turn 4 Arjuna is throwing his Sultai ramp deck into the garbage and crying in the corner. And it's everything you want in Magic.
Yeah. Play this against me, Crafties. You'll see a grown man tilt off for sure.
Or you could play Satsuki, the Living Lore, which is a green and a white 2 mana for a 1/3, not a 2/2 this time, a 1/3 rare human legendary druid. And you can tap it to put a lore counter on each saga you control. Activate only as a sorcery. And when Satsuki, the Living Lore, dies, you choose up to 1. Return target saga or enchantment creature you control to its owner's hand. Return target saga or enchantment creature you control to its owner's hand, or return target saga card from your graveyard to your hand. Oh, yep. Okay, so that's in play. Return target saga in play or enchantment creature in play to its owner's hand, or return a saga from your graveyard to your hand. Sorry, I had to like, do you see what I'm saying? It's kind of confusing.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. This card says the same thing in a number of different ways. But yeah, I mean, this is basically like your patron saint of sagas, right?
Saga Tribal.
Yeah, Saga Tribal. And I actually did put this in a Bant, basically Saga Tribal deck I was talking about earlier, along with Storm the Festival and some other familiar faces. It was fine. It was ultimately kind of a meme. When you actually do manage to do the thing, it feels pretty busted. But it's not actually that good so far from my experience.
I'd be strongly concerned about playing a turn 2 this and turn 3 no saga.
Yes, that would suck.
That doesn't sound like a good use of anyone's time.
It's legendary, which is surprisingly a problem, because
in Saga Tribal, you want to run a bunch of them to make sure you do the thing. You know what it reminds me of? In Search of Greatness.
Oh, yes. Still searching after all these years, man. Still searching after all these years.
Like the ceiling sounds insane, and then the floor is so. Yeah.
This card doesn't even scry for you, so probably just don't craft it.
All right. I think I'm past 2 drops that we might play in our enchantment decks. Do you have a feeling of which one won that battle? I think it's Weaver of Harmony personally, or no, the Naturalist. I think it's the Naturalist, the uncommon, just cast your powerful ones cheaper.
Down. Yeah. Honestly, I feel like the ceiling is probably the highest on the snaky boy that pumps the team and can copy effects, but you gotta know what you're doing with that guy. You can't just jam,
Honestly, the winners for me are the Naturalist and Ranger class. Just play Ranger class.
That's such a good card.
Does the thing.
A good card.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, love it.
All right. Okay, this card is on the list. What the hell?
Yes.
All right.
You want me to read it? I can read it.
No, I got this. I was born for this. Spirit Sister's Call is 3 and a white black for a mythic enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, choose target permanent card in your graveyard. You may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with the chosen card. If you do, return the chosen card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it gains if this permanent would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Just every end step, you get some kind of like an ability to just transmogrify something on the battlefield and do a similar thing in the graveyard. What are you doing with this?
All right. I wager CGB that before the season is out, you will have made at least one very fun deck built around this card and made a video about it. This card looks like a meme, and maybe it's a meme, but it's a very powerful meme. And I was actually inspired after watching the One Jame, content creator, the One Jame, who built the deck around this. And you can do surprisingly powerful things with this card. So here are some highlights. You can play this in a deck with, for example, it's like an amazing combination with Binding the Old Gods. Because basically, like Binding is one of those cards where the turn you play it, it's excellent. The turn after you play it, it's also excellent because it fetches you something. And the turn after that, it's garbage. No one cares about chapter 3, right? And so if you can sack a Binding to this and then like get something else back with it, it's really great. The deck revolves around, there are some really powerful synergies. Like, for example, what's the giant saga that does 4 damage and then scries? And
Battle of Frost and Fire.
Yeah,
just
so Battle
4 colors already, but go on.
Oh yeah, well no, the deck's a 5-color deck. For sure.
Of course
because Crafties, it plays the Kami War. Anyway, once you start like going off with these cards and like scrying and getting stuff back from the graveyard, and I know this deck now. Yes,
I'm gonna bury it a little because One Jame rated me.
Yeah, and
then like the very next match, I'm in a match with some 5-color thing, and there are sagas all over. I'm like, what the hell is this? And he like took credit for it. He's like, this is mine. I'm like, oh, so you're telling me I'm battling your pupil right now? Well, I'm going to drag this out and like expertly torture this person. And I did. It was disgusting how badly I destroyed them.
I believe that. I mean, I imagine the deck doesn't play that well against control.
I had no idea what was going on. I never saw this card. I think I saw a Kami War right before they died. It did not go well for them, but
Fair enough.
Now I at least have some idea because he didn't tell me about Spirit Sister's Call. At least I have an idea of what the point of like what I saw as weird saga tribal was.
Yeah, that's the plan of the deck. I'm trying to think. Once you build the deck and play with it, it will remind you of like some other decks in the past, but you'll basically get all of your value from just like looping enchantments from the yard. It's somewhat reminiscent of like Doom Foretold, Anyway, it can do powerful things. I'm not saying it's like going to be some tier 1 thing. It just impressed me is all. Like it's once you start doing the thing, it's a lot more powerful than you realize.
You know what it reminds me of now that I'm thinking about it? Like the kind of things, there are some deck builders that just every now and then at a pro tour do something insane. Like Andrew Cuneo or Adrian Sullivan would have shown up to a pro tour with something like this. And they'd be on, feature match round like 6. Oh my God, they're undefeated with what the hell Pog deck is this? And you watch it and you're like, it's the future, man. It's the future. And then you go play it on ladder and you're like, counter spells.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's certain meta games where decks like this just demolish the floor because like people don't have answers and like all of your stuff answers their stuff and it's just not even close. But yeah, you're right. Like one savvy control opponent will just completely pick you apart.
Next card is called Brilliant Restoration. I feel like it might fit in that deck. It's 3 white, 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 7 total mana, rare sorcery. Return all artifact and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Whoosh. Here they are.
Whoosh. I mean, so here's my question, right? Not that this effect doesn't seem powerful, but like, what is our play many enchantment? I mean, okay, of course, the sagas go to the graveyard, so I'm not questioning that. But what's our deck that plays a bunch of sagas and a bunch of artifacts that also end up in the yard?
I'm picturing a whole bunch of sky turtles, a whole bunch of crabs. You channel them and use those abilities and then get them all back.
I love it. Yeah, I'm just like, what are the artifacts? What are we doing?
What are the artifacts? The crab is an artifact. The turtle's an enchantment. The crab's an artifact.
Oh, you're right. Okay, yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Artifacts typically like to be on the battlefield and don't like dying, but hell, I'll play a bank buster. Why wouldn't I? It's
bust some bank up in here. I mean, Asika's Chariot's always a strong card. Like, it's good against aggro, it's good against control. You can put it in any deck, basically, and it works well with this. So, there you go. I mean, I don't know, though. Yeah. Meme.
It's as likely to pop off as Spirit Sister's Call. So they're just fine.
Fair enough. Steady on.
Now let's just talk about a good card. Okay. Moonsnare Prototype. This is a common, dude. A common. It's a blue mana for an artifact. Tap it. Tap an untapped artifact or creature you control. Add a colorless to your mana pool. Channel 4 and a blue. Discard this. The owner of target non-land permanent puts it on the top or bottom of their library. Honestly, that channel thing, I mean, it's like the final dagger in Koma's heart or whatever, but it didn't even need to be there. Like, just this artifact is kind of crazy. Any other artifact or creature, you can tap it and make colorless. What do you think?
So this is what? It's Springleaf Drum? Is that the card that this is basically like?
That's the throwback people are using, which I believe is a 1-mana artifact that said you could tap a creature you control to create a mana of any color, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay. I haven't played Modern in a million years. It's blue ramp, though. And it's blue ramp that just requires that you play creatures or artifacts. So it kind of tries to exclude control, but then you look at a card like Portable Hole and you're like, does it exclude control? I mean, I've turn 1 Moonsnare Prototype, turn 2 Portable Hole your threat, and cast Bankbuster the same turn. Like that's really good. And then the next turn you're like drawing cards and casting more things, and it just goes on from there. I found this card amazing so far.
Well, I mean, so I'm envisioning this goes into one of those like vomit your hand out and do a bunch of things and then hopefully find a way to refill later in the game kind of decks, right? Like where you're just trying to kind of get out ahead of your opponent, put a bunch of permanents down. You can play this with Magda and Goldspan Dragon and just see if you straight up win. Maybe back it up with a counterspell or two. Is fine, as we know. That's what I'm wondering is like, do you just jam this in any blue creature deck? Like I feel like that's not right, but maybe I'm underestimating
creature the deck. I think the more artifact synergy, the better you are. I'm not sure which blue creature deck I would, you're talking about, but I mean, this and Rain and Bankbuster are just instant best friends. Because you can either draw cards with it or use it to make mana to cast other things.
And it's now we're edging into Disruption Protocol territory, and I mean that card is really good.
No, this card is great for Disruption Protocol. You can just play this on 1, and then on turn 2 you have 2 blue mana, and you can use this for your third. So you have a counter spell if you want it. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying, right? So you get additional mana value out of it, even if you don't have another permanent sometimes. So yeah, I mean, whatever deck this this is going to be a shell, right? Where people are going to be building around like this card, Portable Hole, Disruption Protocol. Maybe there's another card in there, Bankbuster or whatever, right? But I envision this is going to be the start of a number of decks moving forward.
Absolutely. It's a sweet card and it's a common. So go get it. Get into your archetypes. It's going to be fun.
Sweet.
All right, I've got one more here in the Enchantments and Artifacts Matter section, and it's called Enthusiastic Mechanaut. And it is a blue and a red for a 2/2 artifact creature, Goblin Artificer at uncommon.
Artificer, tell me more.
Artificer.
Art of ass. Love it.
Anyway, you've got a flying 2/2 for 2, and artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Cost reduction.
Know you the art of ass? Sorry, I have to do it. Go on.
They think these are accidents. I do this stuff on purpose. I feel like I've played some like weird combo decks back in Dominaria-ish standard, where you'd try to have like Joyra and Joyra's Familiar, which said all historic spells cost 1 less, and you just have a bunch of cheap artifacts and you just play them. And this is like half the cost of Joyra's Familiar. Like half the cost to get a 1 mana reduction on your artifacts. And, you know, 1 can go to 0. So you can play 0 mana artifacts with this. I just feel like it's got to be all right. And it's, you know, turn 1, you can play the card we just talked about, whose name is constantly forgot, Moonsnare Prototype. And on turn 2, you can play this, and you can tap this with the prototype to make 1 mana and play a Bankbuster or any other 2 mana artifact. And it's just... Yeah. That's 4 mana worth of value on turn 2.
Yep.
It seems like there's a lot going on.
And you know what else? Flying makes this such a better creature, right? Like, what was that? The goblin that made the spells cheaper? You know, Goblin...
Electromancer.
Yeah, Goblin Electromancer, right? Like, often ended up just being a totally fine creature in, like, aggressively slanted decks anyway. And this being a flyer means it's like a real threat. So... yeah, I could easily see this card showing up in decks. It could be the base of like either a very busted or just a very competitive deck.
How about you crew this? You use this to crew the Mindlink Mech, and now your artifacts are 2 cheaper.
Ooh, cost 2 less. Yikes, that's pretty nice. I dig it. Yeah, I see where you're going with that. Yeah, it's got to show up somewhere. Like if it's not in standard, it's going to be in historic or whatever, but it's going to be good. I mean, hell, dude, just like playing a Key to the Archive on turn 3. I mean,
not bad.
That's nice.
Yeah,
that is nice.
As anyone who's ever perpetually reduced the cost of their Key to the Archive with Discover the Formula knows, that's pretty good. You do that. We're about to leave Artifacts and Enchantments Matter. I just want to say, I'm really kind of nervous about like just how good these decks will get. I've been playing an artifact deck all day. It was very hard and complicated, but very good. And it gave me a lot of like really skill intensive mid-range vibes, a very different kind of standard than we've had in a while. And I'm not that nervous about standard being like bad or boring now, but I'm nervous that there's another artifact set this year. Like September is another artifact set. So artifacts are going to be so ubiquitous, and everything that destroys, exiles, or messes with artifacts or triggers, makes artifacts cheaper, or whatever artifacts is going to be busted, I think.
You're right. And, you know, they did a thing which they haven't done for a while, which is that they made an artifact set full of really cheap artifacts. And like, now they were smart. They made the 1 mana ones that were playable cost colored mana, which was a very smart thing to do. That forces you to pay colored mana for them and not just get them for free off of your enthusiastic Mechanaut or whatever. But yeah, things could get pretty degenerate in standard if we're not careful.
All right. You want to take us into Utility Town?
Let's do it. All right. So this one could arguably also be in the Enchantments Matter category, but honestly, this card's probably just going to show up in a bunch of different shells. Spirited Companion, 1 and a white. It is a 1/1 enchantment creature dog at common. When, just the best boy, of course. When are these dogs ever not just good boys? When Spirited Companion enters the battlefield, draw a card. So this is Elvish Visionary in white, and it's an enchantment.
I don't know exactly where it needs to show up, but there's not a lot of reasons for it not to show up. I played a couple with my Iganjo restoration of Iganjo decks, because getting it back just draws you a card.
Totally.
Really nice.
I mean, playing this for 1 white mana when you have your Jukai Naturalist in play is going to feel real nice. So,
sure. Or just pumping that spirit or whatever with it. I mean, there's a million things with enchantments right now, and there's always a million things you can do with creatures, whether it's blink them, get them back from the graveyard or whatever. And this card is just here.
And, you know, Orzhov sacrifice shells are already looking to be top tier in the meta. So this might start showing up in those as well. Cool card. All right. Next up, we have another enchantment creature that gets you value. It's called Gloom Shrieker. 1 black green for a 2/1 enchantment creature cat beast. So it's a cat this time. This doesn't look like a very good boy. Kind of a gnarly, maybe friends with a snake too. So you don't want this one coming through your cat door. Let's put it that way.
Typical cat beast.
Yeah.
Can't trust them.
You're right, dude. Just making friends with all the wrong people. So this one has Menace. When Gloom Shrieker enters the battlefield, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If Gloom Shrieker would die, exile it instead. So this reads to me as the kind of card that would have been like integral to Boomer Magic. I don't know if it's like a little too pricey now. What do you think?
Card is Boomer Magic. I do agree, but yet I would still want to play it here and there. I mean, it looks really fun, and it's a creature, so everything that we said about the dog applies, where you can blink it, bounce it, get back from the graveyard, and just get value. So maybe there is a world where it shows up where it's just the right kind of value in the right kind of place. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, if it does show up, it's going to be a good time. Next up on the list, Dockside Chef, 1 black mana for an enchantment creature, which is kind of big game, I think. Human Citizen at uncommon. It's a 1/2, and it has 1 and a black. Sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw a card. So this is basically the same text that's on the
Skullport Merchant.
For the Merchant, exactly. But you get this at 1 mana. And this is just like your garden variety, goes into sack decks creature. The price is right. I think I've already seen you throw this into some of your decks, CGB. How's it been playing so far?
It's all right. It does sacrifice itself, which is a little different from Merchant. And it is an enchantment, which is a very easy to forget but true thing. So there are things that trigger off having enchantments in play. This card, does that thing. It's fine. I don't know if I need it. That's the biggest thing, is like, I feel like I have so much value. I'm drawing, I always seem like I'm drawing so many cards, and black-white tokens in particular. Like, yes, you want to have ways very often to sacrifice your Shambling Gas to Eye Twitch, Professor of Symbology, whatever. But do you need to? Do you really need to? A lot of the times they just die, and if they don't, wedding announcements make them bigger and bigger, and they protect your planeswalkers. So I actually, the more I play that deck, the more I'm like, I don't even need to sacrifice my stuff. It'll just die because the opponent has to get rid of it. Eventually it's a good enough threat, or eventually they have to get through to a planeswalker. I'm thinking about cutting this effect from that deck, to be honest. That it's Fair kind enough. Of the next thing on the chopping block, where I might just try more planeswalkers, more power.
Yeah, fair enough. This is definitely another template which screams Boomer Magic, right? We've kind of had cards like this forever, and they've all historically been just part of these sack decks. But I agree. Yeah, this card doesn't jump out at me, but it could easily find a home in a number of different shells. So keep an eye on it.
Yep.
All right. Moving into the ninjas category. So CGB has some experience with this. It's kind of funny, actually. When I went back to the drawing board and wanted to build this deck, I ended up basically just rebuilding a rogues deck, because I honestly just kind of feel like the rogues are better than the ninjas for most part. But anyway, let's get into this. First up, Thousand-Faced Shadow, 1 blue mana, creature human ninja at rare. It is a 1/1. It also has ninjutsu for 2 blue. And this effect, just to summarize, crafties, is you can return any unblocked attacking creature you control to hand. You put that card, and then you put whatever the ninja is with ninjutsu onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So this card has flying, and when Thousand Faced Shadow enters the battlefield from your hand, if it's attacking, create a token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. The token enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. My question, CGB, is have you ever done the thing?
Yep.
Okay. How was it?
Not worth it.
Not really very good, right?
The issue is this. You're asking for some very difficult things. You need to have a creature to return to your hand. And then you need to still have another thing on the board that you want to copy. And ideally, you are attacking with all these things. So if the creature that you're copying is just running to its death anyway, you're not really up anything. It's actually really super awkward and hard. And by the way, if it's a legendary creature like Zerasan, that's not a good thing to make a copy of, really. If they were blocking the Zerasan and going to kill it, you kind of dodge the block, but you still don't very often and leave the combat with like more creatures than you had. And you return something to your hand to ninjutsu this, and you paid 4 mana to do it. So your turn's kind of spent. Your battlefield is about the same as it was, and you're still wide open and tapped out. It's like, it was really bad. Really bad. And this was one of the things where I was like, well, maybe I'll copy a Lord with this, and then my opponent will just die. That was insanely hard to do. It is so hard to go wide with a ninja deck because you're just bouncing your stuff for the effects all the time.
So you raise a really good point, which is that like the ninjutsu thing feels really good when you pull it off, but when your opponent deals with it, it's really tempo negative. And so let's just take a simple example. You play this on turn 1, and then on turn 2, you ninjutsu it back to your hand, and you put something from your hand on the battlefield. If your opponent then kills that thing in combat, like with a removal spell, say, then you've basically just time walked yourself for turn 1, right?
I'm going to go a step further. Even if they kill it the next turn, like your ninjutsu ability, it might have been draw a card, but you're completely down battlefield. You have no battlefield now. If they kill it, even in the next turn cycle, you don't have a next attack to do more ninjutsu cool stuff with. You have to start from scratch. It's not great.
Yeah, totally. Another thing to note is that one of the nice thing about rogues was that like a lot of them had flash, right? And so you could just play them anytime, right? So like, let's say you ninjutsu'd onto a rogue and that came back to your hand, and then, you know, like, what was the one drop, the black one, right? The
Thieves Guild Enforcer.
Yeah, so if we were ninjutsuing a Thieves Guild Enforcer, we could then just play that card at instant speed for the rest of the game, right? Whereas a lot of these ninjas are not that way. So like if you bounce this back to your hand and then you just have to play a dorky 1/1 at sorcery speed the next turn, it's really weak. So
if you're a ninja gamer in current standard, you're uncounterable instant speed kinda, but since it's all on your turn and in combat and vulnerable to removal, you're basically a sorcery speed player, and you're really at the mercy of the opponent doing literally anything about it.
Totally. So this next card was actually a card that I really enjoyed in my Rogues deck, which is Silverfur Master. Now this is blue-black, and it is a 2/2 creature rat ninja at uncommon. It has ninjutsu for black and blue, and ninjutsu abilities you activate cost 1 less to activate, and other ninja and rogue creatures you control get +1/+1. So just a cheap Lord makes your flyers more powerful, and you know, it has the ninjutsu thing. So I definitely found this card to be worth including if you're going to play any of these kind of decks. What about you?
I found that I basically never ninjutsu'd it. It's kind of, you know, because you want your Lord to have other creatures around it. So, you know, if you drop your 2-mana 2/2 Lord on turn 2 and it lives, that's good. And if it dies, it's sad.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, I most frequently found myself just playing this out on like turn 4 pre-combat because I just wanted to get more damage in, right?
Yep.
Okay, the ultimate tilt on this card, though, which I did not realize until after I screwed it up. All right, Crippling Fear. What do you name with in your Rogues deck with Crippling Fear? You name rogues, right?
No, the deck has a serious problem with that because it has ninjas that aren't humans and humans that aren't rogues and rogues that aren't ninjas.
Yeah, I definitely owned myself hard and took myself from an at parity situation to a horribly losing the game situation by wrathing away my own Silverfur Master with Crippling Fear, and it was embarrassing. So don't.
Sounds like a good clip on Twitch.
Don't make the same mistake that I did, crafties. All right, next card, Biting Palm Ninja, 2 and a black, 3/3, creature human ninja, not a rogue, at rare. Ninjutsu, 2 and a black. Biting Palm Ninja enters the battlefield with a menace counter on it. When Biting Palm Ninja deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a menace counter from it. When you do, that player reveals their hand and you choose an on-land card from it. Exile that card. So if you do the thing, it's pretty strong. But how did this play for you?
It had some good in it, you know. I like when you do it and you get their one thing, you know, the one that was going to kill all your stuff, the Meat Hook Massacre. Like, you feel really good. I don't know how many times I've played this though, and again, like, you ninjutsu it in and you kind of dropped tempo on yourself, right? And it's like I look at their hand and I'm like, I guess I'll take one of their 5 creatures that are better than my entire battlefield right now, and then they play one of them and it never hits again. You know, it's very not good.
Yeah, and also, crafties, if you're thinking of getting all like fancy with this and somehow putting another menace counter on it or like populating the menace counter, like just go home. just go home. It's not going to work. All right. Next up, Nashi Moonsage's Scion, 1 black, legendary creature rat ninja at Mythic. This is a 3/2 ninjutsus for 3 and a black. When Nashi Moonsage's Scion deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of each player's library. Until end of turn, you may play one of those cards. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. So obviously when this connects, it's pretty powerful. You get a choice of up to 2 spells that you get to cast for free for the hopefully small price of paying life. I kind of feel like this suffers from all of the other ninja problems, only worse because it's more expensive and weaker.
The fail state is you just get nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
I've had that plenty of times where it's like
Okay.
land or land. And you already made your land drop on turn 4 to cast this stupid card, and it never connects again because it's a freaking 3/2 just sitting there on the ground. And it's not when a ninja deals combat damage. It's only when this card deals combat damage. So it just sits there looking like Grozalex with no friends and just can't attack ever. And this is, I'm proud to report that the Mythic is by far, in my opinion, the worst. I found this card unplayably, disappointingly, tiltingly bad.
Yeah. You know what else is tilting about this? CGB hits 2 lands and then his opponents always hit his lolth or whatever, right? And the game's just over.
At least they banned Divide by 0 so they can't, bounce the Divide by 0, the thing that you cast of theirs.
Oh God.
Oh wait, never mind. They just would have bounced this and you never would have had a trigger to begin with. So bad.
Loudy.
It's so bad.
Loudy. Yeah, it's kind of rough. Oh, well. Okay. Do I need to read this next one? Katos, the Silent Spider.
No, you don't need to read any more ninjas. You can just read none of the ninjas.
You suck. Yeah, Satoru Umezawa, maybe in Commander. Prosperous Thief. Do you agree, CGB, that this was like, for me, this was the only card with ninjutsu less than 3 that I considered playing in my decks?
Oh, yeah. I played this card.
Yeah. I'll read this one. I think it's probably the best of the options in that slot. Prosperous Thief, 2 and a blue. 3/2 creature human ninja at uncommon. Ninjutsu, 1 and a blue. Whenever one or more ninja or rogue creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. So, yeah, I mean, the thing ramps you. It triggers off your other things dealing damage. If your dorky flyers get in there next turn, you also get the treasure. Seemed decent. How did you feel about it?
When your deck is popping. This card is a banger. Like turn 1 flying dork, turn 2 ninja this in, make a mana, use that mana to spell pierce the opponent or fading hope their dude. So the next turn you keep getting in and you keep adding, like creating an extra treasure every single turn, and you're just playing ahead of curve and protecting it all game. That's like the ultimate, that's like the high point for ninjas is what I just described. And what I came to realize is that in doing that, I only ninjutsu'd once, and it's the only, you know, in those high point games, I did one ninjutsu, and it was Prosperous Thief on turn 2, and that's all I wanted to do. That's all I needed. The rest of the time, we want to build battlefield and protect it, not do ninjutsu.
Dude, I so agree with you. It just highlighted the fact that the strong part of the rogues play was that you got a couple rogues down cheap in turns 1 and 2, and then you just had frickin' counter spells and interaction for days, right?
Yep.
And then you just squeaked your other rogues in where you could fit them in, right?
Yep.
So that's exactly what you should still be trying to do. And yeah, these ninjas just don't do it. So.
And this ninja isn't a rogue. This is the one that I'm the most upset with. Like where I'm like, okay, I could just have a sweet rogues deck if this was a rogue. Yeah. But no, a Prosperous Thief is apparently not a rogue. Will not be a rogue, will not join the Rogues Guild, does not consider itself a rogue. Obviously, just a straight up member of society.
An upstanding ninja. CGB.
What, they make too much money to be a rogue? They're too prosperous? You have to be like in the dirt, you know, in the back alleys to be a rogue?
Yeah, you have to have patches in your clothes if you want to be a rogue, CGB. Yeah, it's a ripoff. It's such a ripoff, dude. And you know what the sad thing is? I don't think it would have been too good, you know?
No.
Like, Crippling Fear would have been fine in this deck, and everyone would have been fine with it. I don't know why they made that choice, but maybe, you know what? It's probably because people were just so scarred the first time around with rogues. They just didn't even want to get close.
Probably.
Yeah. All right. We're coming into the home stretch here. Just wanted to talk about a few totally utility normal counter spells that are going to show up in the format. First, CGB is stoked because he knows these cards well. First one is Spell Pierce, 1 blue instant at common. Counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2. So, you know, a lot of people who've been playing Arena for a while will remember what the last time this was in the format. I don't know. For the people in the back, CGB, just give us an idea of like what kinds of decks do you typically want to play this in? What kinds of matchups? Like, where does this card really shine?
Spell Pierce is at its best in decks that can end the game, because as the game gets longer, Spell Pierce gets worse. The more mana the opponent has, the less likely you can Spell Pierce something good. So it's very good in a deck that maybe plays a couple of creatures and then protects its board with counter spells, and Spell Pierce is a very cheap one, is really good at that. There are so many times where the opponent, you know, goes for their sweeper and you can Spell Pierce it, or they build up a little bit of mana, go down to like 4 life, and they go for their sweeper with counterspell backup because they know your strategy, but you have like Jwari Disruption and Spell Pierce and they get double countered. And Spell Pierce is great in those situations, 100%. I have already Spell Pierced some beautiful cards. Wedding Invitation, Lulth, the Wandering Emperor, Doomscar, Meathook Massacre, just to name a few of the things that just could not hang with the power of Spell Pierce.
Yeah, you're going to feel awful when you tap like 5 mana for your big Planeswalker, or like a Storm the Festival at 6 mana, or even your Chariot on 4, which is going to stabilize you and your opponent Spell Pierces it. That can often be just like a game-losing turn right there. But yeah, it's like, okay, for example, do you ever play these in any amount in the control mirror? You can sideboard them in. I would be very like small, like max 2, maybe 1, because again, they'll get outscaled in the late game, but those games often come down to a very big counterspell fight. So having a couple of these is a good thing. Having too many of them, like you don't want 2 in your hand when your opponent has 8 mana and resolves a 4 mana play. Like you need a hard counter most of the time, but these are like the backup, the counter to the counter. This was also my preview card for the set. So nice.
Definitely one of my favorite cards I've ever previewed. Fits so much of what I'm going for, and the art is very sweet.
It is very sweet. I actually found myself preferring this art to the previous ones that were available. So good job on that. All right. Another staple returns in Essence Capture. Blue instant at uncommon. Counter target creature spell. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to one target creature you control. So this card just kind of tells you what it's supposed to do, right? You're playing creatures, your opponent's playing creatures. You're countering their creatures, you're making your creatures better. So it's really a tempo-y card in creature decks that expect to play against other creatures.
This plus Delver is good. Delver probably needs a little more support, and I'm not sure what other 1-mana cards to go with, but it's getting there. We have Spell Pierce, we have Essence Capture, we have Fading Hope, we have Delver. Like, it's starting to, like, will that blue or will that mostly blue or mono blue tempo deck ever be a thing? It's trying. It's starting to come together. Yeah.
So but both of these cards were playable in the format in which we saw our mono blue tempo deck show up previously. They both did work in that format, and we could get there again for sure. Disruption Protocol, we've already covered this, but basically it's just blue instant counter target spell, and then you have to either pay another colorless mana or tap an artifact to cast it. Any additional thoughts on this, CGB?
Better than expected so far.
I agree. I think this card's going to just be like a total player in the format. Honestly, you're going to get blown out by it. I think it's a really exciting card, to be honest. I think it's one of the coolest counter spells they've printed in a long time. We already... Oh, no, we didn't. All right. So this is the blue invocation. Invoke the Winds. 1, blue. Sorcery, rare. Gain control of target artifact or creature. Untap it. So 5 mana control magic. Can hit artifacts. What do you think?
This card broke my heart. My imagination was going nuts after Invoke Despair and Invoke Chaos of the crazy awesome things that the blue one could do, and every other color either got like this gross rate play like green and white, or just got like this crazy like I want to build around this like black and red. This blue one is a total snoozer for me. If it were an instant, it would be really powerful, and you'd try to build towards it. It would be a major play, but it's a sorcery, and I mean, it's good with Lear, I guess. This card is just not it for sure. Maybe it comes in out of the board in some certain matchup or whatever, but apart from that, it's just heartbreaker. Can't even yank a Planeswalker, man.
You know, dude, they don't make them like Agent of Treachery anymore. They just don't. When was the last time a steal was good? I guess it was the one blue one that sometimes saw play out of the board in Rogues.
It was the Akroan War.
Oh, the Akroan War was good. Yeah, the Akroan War was a good card. Yeah. But just like, I don't know, stealing isn't a big thing right now. Probably for the best. It's really annoying when it is good. So, but yeah, you're right. It's a shame they kind of wasted this card. Okay, Mirashell Crab. Now, this card, I thought this card might show up. I'm glad that people have been playing it. So 5 blue artifact creature crab at common. It's a 5/7. So it's basically a golem. It has ward 3. But wait, you can channel it for 2 and a blue. Discard Mirashell Crab. Counter target spell or ability unless its controller pays 3. So an uncounterable mana leak, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think, CGB? Like, you're a good person to comment on this. Like, is this worth its money?
It has its moments. First of all, just artifact matters set. Lots of stuff with artifacts, and not just on the board. So Ingenious Smith needs a certain number of artifacts in your deck. So turning one of your disruption protocols into a Mirashell Crab can be the difference between whiffing with your Smith or having an extra counter spell in your hand in that deck. So a little bit of a deck building puzzle. We talked about this and the turtle and the white card that brings everything back. Probably a meme, but very doable. I for one, I'm sick of getting Tasha's hideous laughter out of games. So you can just run like Seagate Restoration and Amiria's Call and Mirashell Crab as your counter spell, and your the Tasha's Hideous Laughter, like they copy it and they hit like 8 cards, and you're like,
Suck it.
Suck it, Mill.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
But and this card has its spots. You can find roles for this card.
Yeah, I think this is going to end up being better than it looks. And that's kind of my prediction for just like all of these channel cards. However good they look, I think they're just going to be a bit better than that. The last card I want to read is another channel card, which is Careful Cultivation. 2 and a green, enchantment aura at common. Enchant artifact or creature. As long as the enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+3 and has reach and tap to add green. But wait, you can also channel it. For 1 and a green, discard Careful Cultivation. Create a 1/1 green human monk creature token with tap to add a green. So this card is a bit of a game changer in ramp decks that want to play mana dorks. In standard, I mean, we have better options elsewhere, but in standard, being able to make this at the end of your opponent's turn 2 and then, probably untap with it and have 4 mana is pretty sweet. It kind of solves the age-old problem of Bolt the Bird, right? Where like you play your thing and then your opponent untaps and they kill your thing and then you're none the wiser. This actually forces your opponent to play around it. It forces your opponent to not commit to the board if they want to kill your mana dork. So I mean, who knows? Adding only green is kind of a downside. A lot of mana dorks these days, especially ones that cost 2 mana, will fix your colors, and this one doesn't. But overall, I expect this to show up somewhere.
I love that you can just turn your Bank Buster into a ramp card and just turn 4 Storm the Festival.
There you go. Yeah, it is kind of weird. I like this card with Storm the Festival too, because if you get like a super dud hit, you can just slap this on something with Storm and at least you have like a reacher, that can maybe have some effect on the board.
Yep.
So yeah, really cool card, I think.
I think so. It's a player.
Yeah, it's a player. There's a bunch of other weird green rampy cards that I'm not going to read. This is like the strangest green ramp set I've ever seen in my life.
You would be the one able to talk about this. I look at all these cards and I'm like, eh. But
that's so
you
weird.
are always on the lookout for good ramp cards, and they're not really there, huh?
I'm here to tell you, crafties, these ones ain't it. Or if they are, they're in some weird ass decks that I don't understand.
It's the blue and white got the ramp in this set.
Yeah, really.
We got the Restoration of Iganjo, and we got the Moonsnare prototype, and there's your ramp.
Honestly, I'm struggling for green's identity in this set. You'll notice that we didn't really read a lot of green sagas, and that's because I think they're all pretty crap.
I think that this set has two, like, either a thematic and just a very deliberate effect to like tone down green. Greens doesn't have the best of all the cycles in this, and it's not doing much. And that makes sense because we're in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and in like it's all futuristic and techno, and even if you look at like the forest art, it's like their forest is like one tree in the middle of like a city,
Right.
So thematically, it's like not a bad set to kind of isolate green and bring it down to earth a little. Get it?
Yeah.
Did you hear what I said there? Down to earth, because green. Yeah.
Oh, you really know how to roll it out, CGB.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Rumty supporters, the people who worship at the altar of Rint and Rumty, not getting much from this set, but that's fine. Green's exactly just gotten so juiced forever, and maybe it's time for them to take a break. A little sad though for if you're a garden variety ramp mage like Arjuna.
I mean, if you're a green mage, you probably still have a pretty good deck, and you don't have to craft any cards. You can't be that upset.
Very good point. It's a very good point. Yep. I mean, Cat Chariot, still a banger.
Hey, I want to play a game with you.
Okay.
So I want to do like a combined score of hype to playability, and we're just going to do some comparison. All right. Just some head to head. All right.
Lay it on me.
Kamigawa Neon Dynasty versus Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. Who wins?
Oh, easily Neon Dynasty.
All right.
No contest.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Kamigawa versus Strixhaven.
Again, I'm going to go with Kamigawa. It's closer.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that too. All right. Kamigawa versus Zendikar Rising.
Ooh, no. Zendikar wins for me.
Zendikar wins for you. You really love ramp. You really love playing more land.
I mean, I don't know. Just think about all the staples, man. Zendikar has so many staples.
Omnath. I'm going with Neon Dynasty. I don't actually look back at Zendikar Rising very fondly. It wasn't a very exciting set for me. It was a speed bump. Okay.
Fair enough.
Kaldheim.
No question. Kaldheim kicks the set's ass.
I think Kaldheim is like probably peak of what we have right now in standard, but
Kaldheim was kind of like it was the set where they were like, all right, this needs to keep up in a busted format, but we need to start ramping the power level down. So I think Kaldheim is like, I would put Kaldheim at maybe like maybe not that, like M21 power level maybe, or like a couple steps down from frickin' Eldraine.
Chariot, Old Growth Troll, Goldspan Dragon, Alrund's Epiphany.
Alrund's Epiphany.
Probably some things I'm forgetting. These are just like crazy power level cards that have shaped standard 2022 and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus all the snow. I mean, like, think about like monocolored aggro decks.
Oh, Faceless Haven. I forgot to say Faceless Haven. The band. Pour one out for the band.
Yeah, Blizzard Brawl, right? So, I mean, Kaldheim is absolutely the set which is currently propping up the power level of standard. And,
but more recently, though.
Yeah.
Innistrad, Midnight Hunt.
No question that Kamigawa is better.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Crimson Vow?
Easily Kamigawa.
Kamigawa versus both Innistrad sets combined.
Easily Kamigawa. I mean, the Innistrad sets they were such snoozers, dude. They were such snoozers.
I thought they were really good, and they were just not good enough. I liked the flavor. I liked a lot of the cards, and then they just showed up and got epiphanied on, and it was sad.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's like I can pick out a handful of cards, right? Obviously, Meathook Massacre is just like a total game changer. And I'm really glad to see Wedding Invitation getting play. Like that card has really proved its worth. Along with, Sorin or Mark? No.
Sorin and Edgar Markov are both cards that I see in play. Yeah.
Both of them are seeing a fair amount of play. So it's cool, because they've done a lot to mid-range up this format. And I think that that's a big win, right? CGB's all on for that. But I think that Neon Dynasty is going to be a defining set in standard. It's going to be one of these sets that we look back on like a Kaldheim, like an Eldraine, or like a War of the Spark, right? Which is really kind of going to set the tone. So, this set is sweet. And like, we just haven't even scraped the surface of what's possible. Yeah. Yeah. So,
just 2 days in, and I feel like there's so much to do.
So much, dude. So congratulations, Wizards. I'm really stoked about this set. And by the way, this is the first time in like literally forever that I've just gone out and blown like 2,500 gold or 25,000 gold on those lands, because they're just so sexy, man. That's like, how could you not?
I've seen the foil ones in paper in person.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be like, these are the greatest lands of all time. But when I saw the foil one in paper in person, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Restrain myself. Wow. So, they really threw everything at the set, and it shows. It's sweet. So I'm hoping it's not just going to be like super eye-rollingly busted. I'm hoping it's not going to be like another Kaladesh or another Eldraine, right?
We're going to find out. If it is, it seems busted in kind of a mid-game, get a ton of value way. So we'll see. Mm-hmm. Can I do one thing before we end the podcast?
You mean another one thing? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is this is a matter of opportunity.
I can do this all night. Hit me with it.
I made waves on stream recently by saying, have any of you ever seen me yawn in like 3-4 years of watching my content? Has anybody ever seen me yawn? And then they're like crickets. And I'm like, it's because I've learned to swallow my yawns. I can literally swallow a yawn. I'm like, can anybody else do this? They all thought this was the weirdest thing they'd ever heard, but I can. I swallow my yawns, and I've definitely earned. We've earned a yawn. It's 2 hours and 47 minutes. I streamed 5 hours before that. Like, a yawn is well deserved at this point. I'm gonna right here live show you how I swallow a yawn. See if you can even tell. Ready? I just yawned.
That's like it's like a small grimace, right?
Yep. Yeah, I can look right at people and they can be telling me the worst story ever and then bore me out of my mind, and I can yawn right at them and they don't even know.
This is actually a skill that I've also mastered through like working on Zoom calls and stuff. Which
you also swallow yawns?
Oh, I do.
Oh, I mean, that's two of us. I nobody else has come forward as a yawn swallower.
No, I'm definitely yawns. I mean, now, granted, I don't, treat them like a thing of shame, right? So like, I'll yawn on stream or I'll yawn in front of you or whatever. But if I'm in a situation where I feel like a yawn is inappropriate, hell yeah, I'm swallowing that yawn all the time.
Yeah,
it can be done, crafties.
For me, it's branding. There's nothing boring about my life. I do not get tired. I do not get worn down. Hell, I don't even sleep. The one never sleeps.
I mean, you don't, man. I Discord you at like 1 a.m. and you're freaking typing back. You're a machine.
That's 4 a.m. your time.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, this set's hype. Everything's hype. I'm enjoying Magic again, and I'm just stoked about the future, basically. So on that note, we're going to take this one out. Thank you so much for hanging out, crafties. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us in all of the places you can usually find podcasts. In addition, you can also watch CGB Never Yawn on his YouTube channel during our podcast anyway. And you can watch CGB streaming quite often these days on Twitch. So definitely go by and check him out. He is... not just because I make content with you, but you're one of my favorite people to watch. So definitely highly recommend CGB's streams. I also stream sporadically. Recently I've been streaming a lot, like on the weekends or like Friday evenings. So that's a little heads up. I usually don't stream during the week.
Twitch.tv/ArenaCraft podcast.
That's it. You got it. Yep. I've never wanted to be beholden to a streaming schedule, but that's when you can usually find me. All right. I think that's going to do it for this week's show. And we'll look forward to giving you a much more thorough format breakdown next week. Cheers, CGB.
Thank you, patrons, and later, crafties.